Elon Musk speaking.
It's 7 o'clock in the morning, and Elon Musk anxiously waits for his golden payoff, his prize for paying his dues in the valley.
I expect to receive a car that I've just bought, which is called the McLaren F1.
It's $1 million for a car. It's decadent.
There are 62 McLarens in the world, and I will own one of them. Back in '95, there weren't very many people on the internet, and certainly nobody was making any money at all. Most people thought the internet was going to be a fad.
Not this South African entrepreneur. Musk sold his first computer program at the age of 12, and he hasn't stopped selling since.
Wow, I can't believe it's actually here. It's pretty wild, man. Just 3 years ago, I was showering at the Y and sleeping on the office floor. And now, obviously, I've got a $1 million car and quite a few future comforts. It's just a moment in my life. All clear? My values may have changed, but I'm not consciously aware of my values having changed.
My fear is that we become spoiled brats, that we lose a sense of appreciation and perspective.
A year ago, Musk sold his software company, Zip2, which enabled newspapers to publish online for $400 million cash.
Receiving cash is cash. I mean, those are just a large number of Ben Franklins.
It's the perfect car for Silicon Valley, it really is.
There it is, gentlemen, the fastest car in the world. I could go and buy one of the islands in the Bahamas and turn it into my personal fiefdom. Wow. I'm much more interested in trying to build and create a new company. So this is an ATM. What we're going to do is transform the traditional banking industry. I do not fit the picture of a banker.
X.com, this is Julie.
Raising $50 million is a matter of making a series of phone calls, and the money is there. I've sunk the great majority of my net worth into X.com, which is the new banking and mutual funds company on the internet that I've started.
Big X.
Exactly. X.com. I think X.com could absolutely be a multi-billion-dollar bonanza, because if you look at the industry that X is pursuing, it's the biggest sector of the world economy.
Is that a McLaren F1?
Yes.
Oh my God. That's unbelievable.
It's sort of like a series of poker games. And now I've gone on to a more high-stake poker game and just carry those chips with me. And I haven't gone and taken my winnings and spent a big chunk, but I've just really put almost all of it back into the new game. No, I'd say the real payoff is the sense of satisfaction in having created the company that I sold.
Yes, with the cars.
But the car sure is.
The cars.
Sure is
Let's
fun.
be honest.
Sure is fun.
You'll take the car.
If you talk to any of these people who have hit the jackpot early, they don't even have a conceptualization of the amount of money that they have. It's funny money. It's something you don't even think about. The amazing thing is that almost none of them quit, even when they could. It's not a vesting thing. It's not that there's some secret clause in there that keeps them from doing it. They want to do what they're doing. They think that to stop doing that is death.
Well, I'd like to be on the cover of Rolling Stone. That'd be cool.
He calls his company Amazon.com, Earth's biggest bookstore. You can't drop by, not in person anyway. For the customer, Amazon only exists on the computer screen. But Bezos does have an office, so we wangled an invitation. And where's Amazon's headquarters? The public relations people told us to come to 1516 2nd Avenue between Pike and Pine in Seattle. But when we passed the pawn shop and the porno parlor, the wig store and the down-market teriyaki joint, we didn't see anything that looked vaguely cutting edge. No corporate drives or office towers. Just a heroin needle exchange and an old building called Columbia. But it had the number 1516, so we walked inside. And there it was, the logo known to every web shopper in the world. Upstairs, it doesn't look very high-tech either. More like a college dorm than a corporate headquarters. And then there's the boss. You generally hear him before you see him. It's the ear-piercing laugh of billionaire Jeff Bezos. Now, I've heard a lot about your desk.
It's a door with 4x4s.
Come on.
What?
I mean, you can afford a better desk than that.
It's a symbol of spending money on things that matter to customers and not spending money on things that don't.
And you don't need clean carpets. What are these things on the floor?
Well, these are, you know, sticky balls.
Yeah, obviously they work, yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's very impressive. Remember, this man is a titan of our time, a giant. What kind of kid were you?
Well, I was a good student. I always worked really hard. I was nerdy.
You were nerdy.
I was nerdy. That hasn't changed, by the way.
Did you realize it back then?
My watch updates itself from the atomic clock 36 times a day, if that gives you any indication.
Really?
I'm afraid so.
But you did really well, huh?
In school?
Yeah.
I was always a good student.
Bezos went to a Montessori school when he was 3. By 3rd grade, teachers knew he was gifted. A year later, he started playing with computers. In high school, he was valedictorian of his graduating class. Socially?
Socially, I was a little awkward, I think would be one way to put it.
Blind dates?
Not until, I didn't really date much until like my last year of college.
Which was where?
Which was at Princeton. Actually, I set up sort of a formal plan to date. I had all my friends set me up on blind dates. None of them worked out very well.
Maybe it was his intensity, or maybe it was the way he talks. Listen to the way he describes his company's business plan.
We believe that this is a critical category formation time.
Bezos uses the same kind of Wall Street wonk talk when he talks or thinks about almost anything, including what he wants out of life.
The way I made the decision to leave Wall Street and do this was, you know, it'll sound geeky to you, but it was a regret minimization framework. So this is how I actually made the decision.
If I understand it, if I can translate that into English I can deal with, does that mean I want to live my life so that in a few decades from now I'm not going to regret it?
That's exactly right. I want to have lived my life in such a way that when I'm 80 years old, I've minimized the number of regrets that I have. And I think actually a lot of people do that. I think they, even if they don't, you know, call it something as dorky as regret minimization framework, they behave that way anyway. They think that way. And
but for you, it was not carpe diem. It was not wine, women, and song.
No. I don't go in for carpe diem. I go in for regret minimization framework. Absolutely.
When Bezos left that Wall Street job in 1994, he followed that old American edict, go west, young man. He and his wife didn't know where they were going. In fact, the movers packed their things and were already on the road when Bezos phoned them to say he had decided on Seattle. His other big decision? Books. Sell books. Not in stores, but over the internet. The company took off like a rocket. Did you read the Times this morning, New York Times?
Yeah, I saw the Times this morning.
At one point on Friday, Amazon.com's total stock market value surged past $30 billion, making it worth more than a major industrial company like Texaco. That didn't blow your mind when you read it?
Well, I think if you're asking for sort of an emotional response, I think it's very humbling, and it creates a sense of responsibility.
According to my calculations, you yourself are worth somewhere in the vicinity of $9 or $10 billion today. I only say that because I've got a follow-up question.
Okay.
What's with the Honda?
This is a perfectly good car.
In July of 1995, from this modest ranch house outside Seattle, Bezos sold his first book. Today, he has 5 huge warehouses in the United States and Europe, packed not only with books, but with CDs and movies. Last year, Amazon sold more than $600 million worth of merchandise over the internet.
Hey, PK, local financial, I think that's you. C93 is coming back.
And the stock? If you'd bought $1,000 worth of Amazon stock in 1997, it would be worth between $30,000 and $60,000 today. Bruce Smith is an analyst for Jefferies & Company in New York. Is this investing or is it gambling?
Right now, with the frenzy we've had, to me it feels much more like gambling.
Because it's crazy.
Well, I don't find it rational, to be honest with you.
It went up almost 1,000% last year. When have you seen anything comparable?
Nothing.
But there are huge risks.
The internet is real. Real money is being spent. It's not going to stop. But what you could have is a decline in these stocks of 50, 75%.
But investors keep flooding in. Why? Amazon snagged almost 2 million new customers at the end of last year. And like other internet companies, it's growing much faster than those old blue chips. Example, internet giant Yahoo is worth more on paper than the total value of Kmart, Hilton Hotels, and Delta Airlines combined. Call it the revenge of the nerds, the computer nerds.
And the fastest moving titles are over here.
Well, here's Stephen King, here's Daniel Steele, Sexual McCarthyism.
There you go.
Title of the day.
There's no dress code and no hair color code in a place the customer will never see, the Amazon warehouse. Computers do everything here.
Australia,
Japan, California.
Customers generally get their books very quickly, but
You can't do this, you know, you can't.
You can't touch the book. You can't hear the binding creak.
Yeah.
You can't smell the paper.
And it's a great smell.
And it is. And that's why it's a very different experience.
with his computers, Bezos used to sell a lot of computer books to computer nerds. These days, the Amazon goes everywhere.
In the last hour, the best-selling book at Amazon.com has been The Greatest Generation by Tom Brokaw.
You think we're going to put that on television?
I don't know. It'll be a test of your credibility.
A while ago, I bought a few books from Amazon. This time, after I logged on, the computer greeted me back, welcoming me by name.
Is this you?
That's me.
you?
That's me.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
The computer also remembered my past orders, and after comparing me with other customers who'd bought the same books, it calculated which new books I might like to buy.
The Untouchable, The Comfort of Strangers, Death in Summer, Breakfast on Pluto, I Married a Communist.
That's awfully good. I mean, frankly, it's very good because I've already bought 2 of those books in bookstores.
That's because people who have your same sort of buying profile, that electronic soulmate,
This is really
have
scary.
bought
I've read a lot of these books and bought many of the others.
And using the same kind of computer wizardry, Amazon also had some ideas about what kind of music I might like to buy.
Elvis Costello, Bob Dylan, Van Morrison. And of course, you can listen to these. So you can listen to samples.
Now, every time I use your website, you learn more about me.
Yes.
One of your employees has said that you collect half a gigabyte, whatever that is, of information on your customers every day. That's about 350 floppy disks worth. What do you do with that information?
That's the data that allows us to predict, or try to predict, what what books and videos and music that you would like, that you haven't discovered yet.
All of that data, information about the likes and dislikes of millions of customers, is stored here on well-guarded, ultra-secret, dust-free, and very expensive computers. Bezos refuses to rule out selling the valuable information to other companies in the future, but he doesn't think his customers are concerned about the issue.
NFS working at 42.5, talked about 15 minutes left on the floor.
And Wall Street isn't concerned that Amazon has never made a profit, not a dime. In fact, it lost $125 million last year. The company says it's investing for the future. Skeptics say it would have to sell every book being sold in the world today to justify its stock price.
I think my generation grew up with Sears.
And Amazon is worth 20% more than Sears is worth in market capitalization.
How do you view that phenomenon that Amazon today is worth more than Sears?
Investors are focused on the future. Amazon has growth potential that Sears doesn't.
A couple of geeks who sketched out some software could destroy Sears Roebuck.
That's the beauty of technology and the microprocessor. We've never seen anything like it.
But history has seen revolutions before, one thing supplanting another. Could Amazon and its tributaries be flowing towards the shopping mall and eventually drown it out?
If you were running Walmart today, would you feel threatened by Amazon?
Absolutely.
Would you decide to go after them?
Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, they already are. Walmart is suing Amazon for hiring away some of its top executives. As for Barnes & Noble, its stock is worth much less than Amazon's, but in a down-and-dirty negative ad campaign, Barnes & Noble is reminding readers it has many more books to offer than Amazon.
It's getting really nasty out there, it seems to me. The online bookstore, the Barnes & Noble bookstore, is so big it makes Amazon.com look tiny. Seems to me that this is almost a declaration of war.
Well, it's not just Barnes & Noble, but one of the
Walmart
things...
is suing you?
That's right. And
you're surrounded by enemies. People want to get you. Establishment is big and powerful. Do you ever get scared?
Well, I tell people around here to wake up petrified and afraid every morning.
Do you?
I do.
It is not uncommon for people who have achieved the kind of startling success you have in such a short period of time develop a pretty strong fear about losing it all. Are you afraid of that?
I know we can lose it all. It's not a fear. It's a fact.
Hi everybody. Hi everybody. So hopefully this was a relaxing video for you. Hopefully you didn't get too tired, although it's Friday. So any thoughts about these videos? And any connection to what we're discussing? Zero? Some recap. I'm showing you a recap. Were there any thoughts which you think are in these videos? Okay. Any ideas? Yeah. Everybody sleeping still? Okay, I like actually that they were using, I used Geek Time on my first lectures, you remember? So it's Geek Time, and they used Revenge of the Nerds in this video, Revenge of the Nerds, and then Computer Nerds. The other thing which we were discussing that you should be using the newest business model to make sure that your company is really worth something. So what was the new, I would say, business models which Jeff Bezos was referring to, and they discussed this new business model which you cannot actually have in a normal bookstore. Any ideas? Yeah, so how he kind of explained that they are different essentially to bookstore or to like normal. He said, by the way, the disadvantage is that you cannot smell it, this is a different experience. And then what was the new experience? How we buy it, okay, and why do we buy more books because of Amazon? Predictions, yes. So this is exactly what I was referring to in my first lecture when I talked about the digital transformation. So if you just simply convert like an offline store and make a bookstore online with the same books and don't do anything with the data, then it's not digital transformation. It's just, it's nothing. It is called digitization or like any other word, but not digital transformation. With digital transformation, you have to change the business model, and they made these recommendations. And then it was possible that looking through what books you're buying, you could recommend the music. So, even there's almost no connection here. You don't buy any music, but it still knows which music you would like based on your selection of books which you're reading. So this is amazing. And also in this video, they said that he does not rule out that they may sell the data, and he thinks that nobody's concerned with that. And it's actually changed slightly later, like a 20 years time frame. The sale of data, personal data became really a concern. And in 1999, this was really impressive that they were like recommending this recommendation service. That was really amazing. This was this was not pure e-commerce. It was more than that. This was exactly, as you may recall, we had digital marketing as our next phase of digital transformation, digital marketing, and they did this in 1999. And then obviously, currently, Amazon is really doing Industry 4.0 with everything automated, and everything so. Trying to exclude humans. Actually, in this video, back in 1999, he already wanted to exclude humans from the business. The other thing is, on my last lecture, we talked about markets. And obviously the markets, so what he did, he transformed the market, the actual like existing huge market of bookstores, of anything, like essentially selling books, CDs, and DVDs, and whatever they had back in 1999. Anyway, but I hope that you remember, and here I don't put it into recap, so which specific niche he started from? Books, but even smaller niche. Yeah, so exactly. So he started his business as a bookstore for computer nerds to sell them like nerds book to computer nerds. So this is exactly the idea which I told you last time, that you have to transform a very large market, very large existing market, but start with a very small niche where you can actually dominate. And then you can, add and many more. And then, of course, it was very unusual at that point in time that they went like beyond just books. Initially, it was always just books, and the whole idea was, having all the books available at one place. So they went beyond that and sold like music and everything else. And currently, by the way, Amazon is its sales are also driven by some technology solutions. Like what technology solutions? You know? Amazon, what they are doing for the whole internet, for every, Yes, AWS, exactly, thank you. So the cloud essentially from Amazon is one of the strongest, one of the most used, and this is now really one of the key drivers of their value. So they are constantly transforming and changing their business models, and this is really a great company. So they are really ahead of the curve. Now making everything autonomous, and probably they will be strong in metaverse. They're currently developing metaverse. That's what Jeff Bezos also told, that they will create their own virtual reality shopping experience. Okay, so this is there's some new ideas. Oh yeah, by the way, I really advise you to watch the interview with Evgeny Izhikevich, Russian scientist and CEO of Brain Corp. It was issued a couple weeks ago, and it's, in my view, it's a short summary of my course. Everything is there in this interview. So he talks about his company is essentially AI, brain kind of AI, whatever, operating system for things. And he was initially a scientist in the US. He had very strong team. And a team of scientists, and they were doing a lot in terms of science. And at some point, he said that he will be switching to business, and they will do a lot of they will do operating system for floor cleaners. And then all the scientists in his team said, "Well, we're doing science. We're not doing floor cleaners. I mean, floor cleaners. I mean, the robots. So we're not doing operating systems for floor cleaners." And that was his way to put it in a most aggressive way, so that whoever in the team doesn't share his vision to go into business should leave. And most of the team left, but some of the guys were with him. And now, if you see this video, he got funding from SoftBank and at a multi-billion valuation. And now it's kind of growing substantially, and very exciting video. And why I'm putting this particular shot here, he said that we can do operating system for any robot. And as you recall, last time I told you that you do a radical change to the industry, but we don't change the production infrastructure. You don't change the business processes most of the time. But you include some radical change in terms of technology. So what he said in this interview, that at some point, at the beginning, I wanted to create robots with my operating system. But then I realized that there are millions of companies in the world who are currently producing robots where I could apply my software. And this is our competitive edge. And we started with floor cleaners, because in floor cleaners space, there are only 4 companies in the world who who are having all of these robots. And if we sign up just 4 companies, it's enough to control the whole market. And that's what they did, and that's why SoftBank got they approached them, and they invested into this company. Like there was anyway a coincidence, but you will see this all in this interesting video. Anyway, so today we're talking about 2 things. Firstly, we'll be talking about the teams, the leadership, and about the essential leaders and teams. That will be the first topic, entrepreneurs, how you manage a team, and some things around that. And then finally, our second lecture today would be about venture deal terms. And the first lecture would be kind of soft, and hopefully during these videos we'll show you a couple of more, a bit shorter than that. Anyway, but the other thing which I wanted to communicate to you with these videos, and hopefully you like them. Everybody like the videos? No? No? Nobody? Just raise your hand, please. Okay, so you don't even like that. Okay, fine. Yeah. Anyway, when you are depressed and you think that you are not capable entrepreneur, you can rewatch these 2 videos and see how they all started. And hopefully this will be helpful. And the thing which I wanted to communicate here was that they are firstly, they are nerdy. They feel, both of them, by the way, are very nerdy, totally crazy guys, doing crazy things. And this XCOM corporation, which had to transform the banking industry, the largest market in the world, mentioned by Elon Musk, he didn't succeed. So, well, he succeeded, but anyway. That was not his last business anyway. And then Jeff Bezos is very nerdy anyway. Yeah. So if you feel that you as a personality are somehow not I would say fit to become a real science-driven and like global entrepreneur, then you really should rewatch these 2 videos. So you will understand that you're definitely not worse than these 2 guys. Anyway, and at least you may even be more serious than these 2 guys. So anyway, in terms of managing the teams and being a leader, it is very unfortunate that we are all human beings, and we have to deal with emotions, with the feelings. We have to deal, to manage the teams so that everybody's happy. And then there's a lot of chemistry in your brain, and you get distracted, and you get depressed, and sometimes it's very irrational. It's just chemistry. So for the entrepreneur, it's always you're moving back and forth, from the situation where you're happy almost, or something is really looking to happen potentially, and then it doesn't happen. So it's going back and forth. So I don't think that any normal person will do entrepreneurship. So then basically you should pick and choose whatever issue, whatever the kind of neurologic disease you wish, and then become an entrepreneur. So let's dive into the actual lecture. So on the lecture, first lecture is about the teams, and the team is very important. And if you ask any investor, except for whom, you remember, last time I talked about this guy, the Warren Buffett. He mentioned that if you control your prices, this is more important than the team. You remember, hopefully. So this was a very nice citation. But anyway, whenever any investor you would ask, what is the most important, I would say, consideration to invest, they would say either the founder or the team. So that would, that kind of typical. And however, there's a research from CB Insights made in 2019 anyway, and they're claiming that the team is actually number 3 in the reasons why startups fail. And obviously the first one is the lack of market demands, and lack of funding is the second. However, lack of funding to me means anything. It means that that investors are not ready to invest. somehow, and there's a reason. Normally, there's like some different reason for that, not just lack of funding. However, anyway, in this research, incorrectly formed team is number 3. It was a quarter of responses mentioned that this was the reason for startups to die. Yeah, so my lecture would be the structure is essentially 4 topics. So we'll cover firstly the composition of the team. We'll start with the leader, what it means to be a founder, to be a leader. Then we'll go through the teams. What is the best composition? What is the diversity important? And many other topics. And then we'll talk about goals, how you set the goals, and how you monitor that they are being attained. And then we'll talk about structuring the team, structuring the work, and finally end up with our usual ending, which is key questions which the investors raise. Does anybody know there's a difference between leader and manager? Does anybody know about that? Leader and manager, is there any difference? Oh, you know, have you been to MBA school or something like that? No? You just know that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so somebody on the webcast, they're not hearing us. So, but anyway, yeah. So essentially what we're saying here is that the leader and manager are different. Leader is giving inspiration, right? So, and then the manager has a different skill set. Okay, do we have here a microphone? Do you have a microphone? Can we bring the microphone to some? Because today, the first lecture is really soft, but still, hopefully, you remember something from that. And then you will see kind of the patterns in real life. But then we'll actually talk, even in this topic, we'll talk about some hard skills and specific hard, things which you need to know. How to build, some of the boards, etc. So yeah, please. Yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Gleb.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So I've just said that to be a leader doesn't mean to be a manager, because the manager is something like an ideal worker. It's not the creator, it's just the person who can do different things, like talk with this person correctly, or do something, anything else. And leader is the person who gives energy, who can inspire, as you said, the team, and I think that in every team must be as a manager and leader.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you. That's the right answer. Anyway.
From my point of view, I can add that leader can have more responsibility for his team and for his product, right. Because manager is he's doing his job and that's it. But leader have more inspiration,
never sleeps.
Yes, and more responsibility.
Okay.
I don't think so that it's very correct to say that leader is not a manager. I think, in my opinion, that leader is just not a person who make all 4 functions of a manager. It's a person with very good soft skills, and it's a person that do any functions of any person from his team. He should do he should have all skills that have his team.
Yeah. So yeah, there are different views. The only thing which is anyway, like 3 of you, essentially what you mentioned, is that the managers and the founders, or like the leader skill set is different. So this is really important. And as you mentioned, sometimes the leader has to be a manager, you know, and vice versa. Probably more rare anyway. But anyway, the specific skill set in both. So we'll go through the differences, and here there are like a lot of differences. Just a slide which gives you some overview. But the leader, exactly. So it really brings the vision, and it has to formulate the vision, sets the direction, initiate change, and then really is always creating something new. And then the manager really protects and makes sure that whatever is the vision, it actually happens. And this is the kind of the difference, right? And the leader may always come and say, now we'll be doing something totally different. And this is not the role of a manager. And you know, sometimes you're fit for a role, not fit for a role, doesn't matter. So it means that if within an organization your role is to manage, then you're not the person who would, you know, set the goals and, you know, change everything all the time. That's the role of the leader. The leader comes in and says, you know what, I don't think that what we're doing is right. So I think that we should do like something opposite and try this and that. And then the kind of the chief operating officer kind of role, like the leader is normally a CEO or the chairman of the company. In the US, normally a CEO and chairman most of the time. Well, this is kind of a tradition. Most of the time, this is the same person. In Europe, it's less so. You have chairman, you have CEO, and we'll talk about the board today, like specifically about the role of the board. But hopefully now you understand the difference. And it's, you know, this is something for you to remember. Ideally, you remember this framework. This is a good framework anyway. It's like many times it's been asked at the interviews, job interviews. So keep this in mind. And then the other thing is that the issue with the current like also leadership and management, that you normally try to be like a data-driven manager. You know, that kind of, you're trying to see the data, to check, you know, things, and then get the feedback, get some understanding of, you know, each step in the process sometimes, and see where the problem is. You know, sometimes this is important for manager, for leader, it doesn't matter. The thing is that if you try and set the, you know, KPIs, hopefully key, like what is that? Key what? Key performance indicators. Oh, I heard this one. This is furthest away guy. Anyway, so you normally you think that if you set the KPIs right, you know, key performance indicators right, then, you know, the whole team would perform accordingly and will achieve the goals, etc. We'll talk about the goals later on. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, because the information is coming, and there's a lot of information to digest, and you have teams where you expect, you know, in a startup at least, you expect creativity, and you expect to tackle things in an unusual way, because they are tackling unusual things, unusual issues, and you don't, you know, you have to align values, and otherwise, unfortunately, you know, if you align KPIs, this will not work, because KPIs may change all the time, or even if the KPIs are not supported by your values, then, you know, it will not work anyway. Anyway, because the information comes like quicker than you can actually react to this information. So that is why the whole like leadership and management situation is changing to more like value-driven, mission-driven kind of management, especially if we talk about small startup. And here are specific ways, specific traits of value-based culture, corporate culture. So, you know, you can go through this list. I will send it over to you anyway, this whole presentation. But, you know, obviously the job instructions This is more like KPIs, they are fixed. And if you have a person within your organization who is always referring, this is not my job, it's not in my job instructions, it means that the person is not ready to think as an entrepreneurial, creative, and not ready to be part of the team. And unfortunately, in a small business, in a startup, you don't need such person at all. So you need somebody who would be like ready to take on responsibility and work based on where they think they can add value, and if they can add value, they should, and not by whatever job instructions, KPIs, and anything like that. This we talk about small companies, about startups, and about value-based corporate culture. Generally, corporate culture, I think so, but I heard, corporate culture is generally I would say the number one thing in terms of like driving the team towards success, right? So you remember that, hopefully. It's not about like lean startup or like agile, whatever, so it doesn't matter. So this is all techniques, and I will not talk about techniques today. You actually have your soft skills, and hopefully you have some project management special course on that. But just for you to remember, the corporate culture, the way you set the values, the way your team is driven, this is the most important. So, and then of course you drive in a partner way without hierarchy, etc. So okay, so let's go further. You should actually read through all of these points and identify what's in your team, what is kind of the wrong attitude to specific matters. Now, what's the role of the leader? Okay, so what's that? The thing is that based on the analysis, like scientific paper here is mentioned, there were 900 case studies analyzed, and it shows that like 1/3 of success of the company is driven by the leader. And the leader is doing three critical things that every leader should do. I think they did mention one thing, which Izhikevich mentioned. He also said there are 3 things that each leader should do. But here, after this large analysis, they mentioned 3 things. Firstly, you have to create and like broadcast your vision in every day. So the vision is not something you write somewhere and put it aside, and for some newcoming team member, you show them, here is our mission, here is our vision of the company. This is something where you continuously talk to each employee, to everybody, to each of your team members every day. In every decision, you're showing that we are acting as per our vision. And vision is something very, very practical. It is not, it's not something, we kind of, so we're changing the world, we're changing specific things, and if we compromise on our vision, then in the long term, we will fail anyway. So we cannot compromise on the vision. Everything else, we can do things and make some compromises. The other thing, which is the role of the leader, is structuring the team, assigning the roles, communicating these roles, and making sure that the people are comfortable with their roles, competent enough to really execute these roles, making sure that there are no tensions within the team, and people enjoy working together. This is all very important. And finally, you should care about individual team members and provide empathy. You should know what's happening to them and really become somebody who helps them. So one thing missing here, which is really a hard skill, so this is all soft skills in my view. What do you think is also a role of a leader, of a startup? Who said that? Financing. Yeah. In my view, this is, you create your vision, you build your greatest team in the world, you assign the roles, you help them, you make sure that all of them super competent, they are much better than you, but then you have to finance this whole vision and the team. In my view, this is the third, probably not the third, but somewhere in between the second and third most important thing. So you essentially create your vision, you build your team, and then you have to support and really you have to find the funding to support this team and go further with them. And this is what Izhikevich mentioned, and I really liked this interview when he said, "I'm not doing anything. I'm not programming. I'm not doing anything. I'm having my vision. I have the team, and I'm finding the funding for the team. That's it. That's the role of the leader. If you're doing something else, you're probably doing something wrong, and probably you're a bad leader." That was kind of his words, but this is an actual scientific review. So now about the vision. What is the vision? The vision is a way to formulate so three things here. So what are we actually doing? And people like employees in large corporations, they sometimes really they feel lost because they don't understand what we're doing, what it's all about. So they are doing their small job and they're not feeling part of a greater mission, and they become discouraged and they are less efficient. So the role of the leader is to communicate and to formulate this vision and explain why we are all working here a lot, and this has to be something really, really inspiring. If it's not inspiring, people will start leaving and finding a better, more inspirational company. And the Izhikevich, by the way, unfortunately, a lot of his employees go into Amazon and to some other companies, and we don't know what the reason, but he mentioned this in his interview. And it could be that the vision is not that inspiring, like really to make every floor cleaner act based on their operating system. Anyway, the first thing, yes, is number one is first priority that you have to formulate that and explain in simple words what we are doing. And then secondly, of course, what is the success? In Russia, I always joke that what is the successful success? And that's kind of, you always formulate that. It should be inspiring. It should be it's something which you can actually deliver. Although of course it should be always a stretch, and it has to be successful success, so that everybody is really excited about that. And of course, finally, a leader has to say, so what I'm doing specifically, and how we're doing, and who is doing what, etc. So the other matters which I mentioned before. So as you understand, if you want your company to really be expensive, then of course you would not be selling books or selling drinks or selling whatever the sneakers. So you would be selling something really valuable for people, and people would be buying that because they of course they have many sneakers to compare, many drinks to compare, but they will be hopefully buying your product because there's a great mission behind that. So I very much here you can see all the mission statements of which companies, and yeah, so here you have like Nike is saying to give inspiration and innovative solutions to everyone, to every athlete in the world. So they are not saying that to give them the best sneakers or the cheapest sneakers. Never say cheapest, please. There's too many Russian entrepreneurs who are presenting companies and saying we have the cheapest product in the world. We have whatever. This is the worst speech ever. You probably remember my previous talk, the previous lecture. I told you pricing is very important, and the pricier you can sell, the better. So if you're saying that you are the cheapest in the world, it means you're not creating much value, and potentially you have a worse product or whatever. So this is this will not be sustainable. So please never say cheapest. You could be cheaper. That's fine, but cheaper, in the premium kind of positioning, this is cheaper than the premium brand, this is fine, but never say cheapest, generally cheapest. It's not about selling something as cheap as possible. Yeah, so hopefully, hopefully you already read these mission statements and you feel that that this is something where you should think over about your company, what you're doing, and think that something which you would by yourself would really believe in. That this will, if you manage to deliver that, you would be happy. I told you in the first lecture that that you will always really abandon your business if you don't love what you're doing. So at some point, because it's never easy to make things happen, and it takes time, it takes years to succeed, and you will fail all the time, and then people will not like that, they will not believe in you, people will leave you in terms of your team members, and they will leave for another employer, especially if there's any issues with what you're doing. So ideally you should feel like Neo in Matrix, that you are the one who is doing that. You are the one who will actually transform the education in Russia, and that is when you feel that you are on a mission, and you have all the problems, everything, whatever is happening around you doesn't matter. What is the kind of the money, all these emotions, everything, because you are on a mission and you delivering that. So that's why it's important to formulate this mission in a way that you will personally believe in that, and you will be able to communicate that to everyone in the world. Every day, every 5 minutes, communicate the whole mission, and you have to really back it and truly believe into it. What's the source of power for a leader? So there are two ways how you can create power and how you can push people to do something or actually push them beyond the boundaries which they think is possible, which they think it's possible for them to do. And finally, ways how you can influence people and make sure they follow you. So first pillar is personal power, and of course personal power is more important than official power. Official power is because you are in this position as a top manager, you are managing, or you're kind of a founder, CEO, anything like that. So you have the importance of position, and then you have great contacts. You have the way to make something bad to your employer or anything. So whatever. So and somebody will actually respect you because out of fear that you can talk about them in a bad way, because you have. Batteries? Oh no. Okay. And of course, so this is the official power. So please try really. This is the last resort for your power. If you're using your position, if you're saying I'm the boss here, sorry, please do this way, it means that potentially you didn't manage to communicate the mission. Or you are not influential in any way. You will not get things done appropriately anyway, because people will remember and will think how not to do things which you're asking them. So this will always be kind of the opposite result. So the official power is normally not ideal. However, if you need to deliver something very fast, then probably you have to use the official power. And then the personal power is much more important. It is based on your competence. It shows that you are much more competent than your people. However, as I told you, some of your team members could be substantially more competent in different ways, in a different specific skill. So you have to be ready to work with such people, be personally helpful, and essentially be somebody who is legitimately kind of elected, or some kind of a leader coming because you are more competent and have some legitimacy. So this is the difference between personal power and official power, and you have to transform this into specific influence, and there are specific instruments, and we will not go into that, unfortunately. So, of course, there are there are the whole courses about what is being a leader, being like 5 types of leaders, 10 types, 16 types, and then for each kind of way, if you're a professional leader, you can actually digest that and use it. And sometimes you're the person who is like whatever, like mother or father. At some point, you are like more like a king, etc. So you're kind of using all of these and kind of playing as a theater performance. And this is unfortunately it works because all of us are human beings, and that's why some of these approaches would work. But we're not going into that. But yes, but firstly, please rely primarily on personal power and transform it into actual influence through like choosing the right strategy. And there are specific even courses on YouTube how to like influence people, whatever. So here are some of the leaders, and I actually wanted to. Well, what is wrong with this picture, by the way? These are like the list of like some of the greatest leaders. Only men. Oh, that's good. That's right. Do we have somebody here who would like to lead our women entrepreneurship club, stuff like that? Anybody? No? You? Okay. Would you? Yeah, let's do that. Oh, you as well? Okay, so we have really like women leadership. That's great. Because I also showed to you that the leaders could be different. And here you see them like really like nicely like short. And yeah, please add this to our project list. We should do like women leadership course. That's great. Because we have to change that. We have to change that because the initial, and that's because all of these are men, the overall perception is that this kind of specific way how you manage things, that you have to be whatever, like more aggressive or more kind of more specific, or you cannot be emotional, for example, etc. So it feels there's some prejudice around that. And what I want to communicate to you is that any traits may be helpful, and if you're emotional, it will work as well. However, it's really tough to go like through all these ups and downs if you're emotional. And yeah, so yeah. Anyway, these are really nice shots. They are all like well dressed, most of them. Anyway, but how the actual entrepreneur looks like? Let me check it. So, firstly, yeah. So this is the way, because this is really tough, and you have to. This is, by the way, a painting sold for 110 million. Do you think it could be worth 110 million? Anyway, yeah, this is a famous painter. Hopefully you know the guy. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, let's switch and show another 2 videos which I prepared for you so we have to finalize this topic of leaders and leadership. And could you please switch on a couple of videos more? Grisha. Okay. So they're doing right now. Yeah, so we'll watch just 2 shorter videos, which will just explain how the people look like. What I want you to look at is to think what the age of these people.
Mark,
yeah.
If somebody was to put the question to you about the magnitude of what you think you've launched, how big do you think your product or your service is?
Well, it's impossible to tell. When we first launched, we were hoping for, maybe 400, 500 people. Harvard didn't have a Facebook, so that's the gap that we were trying to fill. And now we're at 100,000 people, so who knows where we're going next. We're hoping to have many more universities by the fall, hopefully over 100 or 200. And from there, we're going to launch a bunch of side applications, which should keep people coming back to the site and maybe could make something cool.
What is the Facebook exactly?
It's an online directory that connects people through universities and colleges through their social networks there. You sign on, you make a profile about yourself by answering some questions, entering some information such as your concentration or major at school, contact information about phone numbers, instant messaging screen names, anything you want to tell, interests, what books you like, movies, and most importantly, who your friends are. And then you can browse around and see who people's friends are and just check out people's online identities and see how people portray themselves and just find some interesting information about people.
Dan, do you make any money?
We do.
So
We
let's
license the
focus.
site to other schools, and we run the site and provide it for them for the semester for all of their students. We actually create a...
There's a competitor for Mark. We never know now this company anyway. So yeah, and please the second video. The second video, please. Yeah, here, listen, please. This is very important.
以后至少5年、10年我们要做的事情。那么阿里巴巴我们将做成怎么样？我想，从黄页的时候我就提过，黄页所要瞄准的对象不是国内展的，而是国际展的。我们所有的竞争对手不在于中国，而在于美国的硅谷。如果说第一，我们把阿里巴巴定位，就把它作为国际站点，我们不要把它定位是国内站点。第二个呢，我想就是我们要学会硅谷人的一种拼劲。如果说我们是早上8点钟下班，8点钟上班，5点钟下班，这个不是搞高科技啊，这个绝对不是我们阿里巴巴能成功。如果说我们有这种精神，反正我上班了，咱们8点钟上班，5点钟下班了 ，OK， 赶紧去其他地方。人家美国人强就强他的硬件，强就强他的系统建设，这方面确实比你早。但是玩信息玩软的，中国人的脑袋绝不比人家差。我们在座的所有的人的脑袋绝不比任何人差。这就是我们敢跟美国人斗的东西，我们绝对敢斗。如果我们是好的 team、好的团队，我们自己知道我们想做什么，我们想干些什么的时候，我相信我们是可以以一当十。我们能够赢政府机构，我们能够赢其他很多的民营企业、大的这种企业的时候，凭的是我们的精神、我们的意识、我们的创新概念，以及我们这种拼劲才能去斗。否则的话，跟他们有什么区别呢？谁都知道，Internet 是个泡沫。我刚才讲的危机感就是 Internet 这个泡沫现在越来，什么时候破？然后呢，把股票掉了，eBay 股票会涨。那么有一天 eBay 股票涨了以后，可能阿里巴巴社区的股票涨，所以不要担心。我觉得 Internet 这个梦不会破，这个泡沫不会破。我们为后面的3、5年所付出的代价是非常惨重。只有这样的惨重的代价，才会赢得我们未来的取得的成功。那么，目标是2002年，阿里巴巴上市。
Okay. So what was he doing in this video? Well, he was really a leader. He's not a manager at this point. So he's really trying to inspire the team, explaining, like, giving them really a stretch goal, and like doing like an IPO within the next couple of years, and being more successful than Yahoo, than eBay, and everything. And he also like says what are the like competitors and how to work against them. So yeah, so just to finalize that, one of the points about leaders, about the founders, which is actually very often discussed, is the ideal age of founders. And there's a research which says that the successful founders are normally like having 40 years or 45, normally 45 years old. Have you heard of that? Yep. Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, so, and it feels like, when you read that you're kind of enjoying your time, doing nothing until 45, and then at 45, you become like a very successful technological entrepreneur. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. Yeah, you have really to work for these 20 years. I mentioned to you 20 years, you remember on the first lecture, that, there's 20 years you have to actually work, not wait, but work to be successful. Do you know when these guys started their business? Do you know? The Microsoft, when was it founded? What was his age? Yeah, he was at the university, right? So he founded his Microsoft when he was 20 years old. So please raise somebody here who are actually older than that. Okay. So you're still 18. Okay, fine. That's clear. Of course, sorry about asking about the age. Sorry about that. Okay, yeah. So he started the Microsoft. These guys started also when they were 20-something. And you see here their pictures. They don't look really nice. I mean, they are normal guys, nothing special about them. And they're starting their business. So the founders could be very early. You can start very early. You can build your business. You can become, top 10 richest people in the world, starting when you're just 20. However, you have to do what I said, in my previous lectures, right? So you remember everything. You have to deal with the best technologies, state-of-the-art technologies, get your niche in the market, get your intellectual property right, build a team, and then go and sell your business. So about building the team. So on the leader, hopefully there are no questions. Now you understand that you can be a leader. That's fine. And on the team, that there's a very famous citation by Jeff Bezos. He says that any crew that cannot be fed with 2 pizzas is too big. Have you heard of that? Yeah, good. I like that very much. And of course, the question is, how large is the pizzas? And we'll talk about that. There's of course, there are some scientific reviews of that. What is the optimal number and the optimal size of the team? I also like the definition of the startup team by Peter Thiel, and you already understood that I love Peter Thiel. He says that this is the largest number of people who you can make believe into something really crazy. So you probably cannot really make hundreds of people believe in something crazy. So at the beginning, it should be a very small team. And anyway, so what's the size which would be efficient? So the size, there's a kind of a theory that at some point the efficiency of the team is going up and then it's going down because we unfortunately we are human beings, right? You remember. So that's why at some point there are some subjective things and some kind of soft skills things which are not helping to make the team more efficient. And based on whatever this scientific evidence, it says that in terms of the most successful startups, they were normally 5 to 10 people at the beginning at least. And then is the question: how do you distribute and split the tasks, and what is the environment? Anyway, you have to remember that there's kind of optimal number of team members in your team, and sometimes you need a larger team because there are too many opportunities which you have to work through, and these opportunities are large. And hopefully you'll get a lot of revenue from these opportunities. Also, you need more resources, you need more ideas, etc. But of course, once you have a larger team, there are a lot of drawbacks of that. So you have to meet a lot of time. You have to make sure that everybody's aligned, and everybody's aligned when there are 5-7 people. I would really advise you to build gradually the team. So you have the first team, and then you feel that people are already aligned, they're already working together, and then you add a bit, and make sure that it still keeps the right efficiency level and everything. The speed is not going down. The pace of decision making is not going down. So really, try and build really a very small team first, and then potentially grow when you have the funding for that. Probably not before you have the funding. So the size, there's kind of an optimal size. As a leader, you will feel it. And then the other question is about diversity. Of course, you heard a lot about making the team as diverse as possible. That public companies are now pushed to add women, to add minorities to their boards for diversity. And there's also some research showing that more diverse boards are more efficient. Women as CEOs of the companies are somehow, at least based on the research, showing better performance in the largest companies. So that's why the values you hear a lot about diversity, but today we're talking about startups, and startups are slightly different. So there are obviously I would say the external or visible signs, visible differences, and then the kind of hidden signs, hidden differences. Visible differences is whatever, gender, age, nationality, educational background, this kind of visible. And then there are a lot of hidden differences like character, values, etc. So and now it's all very much clear, but there's kind of a specific analysis of what is more important here. The bad news or whatever, neutral news, not bad news, but neutral news is that like as opposed to a large company, the diversity is not helpful in a startup, unfortunately. And here, I mean, of course, that the backgrounds, the functions, the skill sets should be different. But the background, the values, ideally the kind of whatever, getting the education. So this should be better, like in the whole kind of your memories or whatever, your background, ideally is more aligned in a startup. And this is a bit, this is just for you to consider. And normally when you work in a small team, you will definitely feel that. If some person is really very different, really in terms of their background, unfortunately, it may be a very competent person, but this doesn't work. This just doesn't work. It's a different view how the world actually works, and you cannot change that. So this is very unfortunate, but this is something you have to remember in a startup. And then in terms of the education spread, etc. So it's good basically for to be innovative. It's good to have different backgrounds, different technical backgrounds. If you have different age, a huge difference in age or difference in work experience, unfortunately, it doesn't work well. So this is for you to remember. You will feel it practically. You will understand that something really doesn't work in your team. You may think about that. Potentially, this is the reason, because the people are of different age, of different background, of different work seniority level, and the how many years they worked in the industry, etc. So this is not helpful. Otherwise functional like differences is good, and etc. So and if you have together more education and more common experience, it is actually like very important and very helpful. Okay, so this is about the leader, the team. Now something about the goals, how you set them, and how the teamwork works. Obviously, within the team, you want to keep some level of innovation, some level of creativity, especially when you work with people who are very professional. And normally, ideally, you try to build, like really to include some stellar people in your team. And create an A team, which would be helpful for you to fundraise and to deliver the highest results. Anyway, like 20% of startups are failing and dying because of the conflict between the co-founders. And the one thing which you should remember as well, and this is a very typical mistake for the founders when they start their first businesses, they tend to split 50-50 all the time. Unfortunately, sometimes it's the right decision, but this is not like kind of scientific decision. So it's kind of just saying, well, we don't know what we'll achieve. So we're just starting. It's currently the value is 0, right? So let's split 50-50. That's a typical way for the founders to discuss these things. Sometimes it works if you're really kind of adding together, you know, if there's one like a technical person and you're kind of a marketing guy, whatever, so it may mix and work well. And there are a lot of great examples of such pairs. You know, like Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, and of course Evgeny Chichvarkin and Timur Artemyev. I don't know if you know this. Timur Artemyev is the co-founder. Is actually founder of Euroset. Is an engineer guy, and then they split 50-50. Anyway, but in case you have more than 2 people, there are 5 people involved, and then you really have to wisely split the equity. And by that I mean that you have an Excel spreadsheet, you like giving, ideally, potentially through my framework, which I'm discussing, who is bringing the technology, who is bringing the intellectual property, who is bringing the kind of the marketing expertise, or could be any other way how you discuss what are the weights of each of that, and then how much can the each team member devote to this company. And then based on that, calculate the actual share where you split, and and it's transparent. It's clear who is responsible for what, for what function. Otherwise, it's just 50-50, and it feels like you got it for free almost. And so you better have this discussion with your co-founders. And when you will calculate that, you will see. You would not, of course, you would not split this equity by 12.35 something. You would still split it to 15, 20, everything would be normal. But, since you communicated that, people will understand what is their function within the team and why are they getting this equity in the company. This is very important. Please remember that. And hopefully, within your practical within practice, you will practice actually this split of equity, hopefully, but probably not in all groups. Now about the goals. So, so once you within the kind of when you split the equity, I mentioned to you that you have to kind of assign the function so that everybody understands why they're getting this equity. You may also have some team members who are here just to earn some salaries. Although anyway in a startup everybody is expecting to get equity, especially there's a kind of, if you're number 2 employee, number 3, like a friend of mine who was number I think 30 employee within Glassdoor, he was very successful and so he even number 30 within an organization will get their split. Anybody heard about MailChimp scandal? Who? MailChimp 1? MailChimp scandal 2? Anybody else? MailChimp scandal. It's very recent. It's like this week. MailChimp got sold, and the employees are really making scandal there that they didn't get any options, they didn't get any shares in the company, and they didn't benefit from the sale. But they were never promised to get any shares. But so. This means that even if you haven't ever promised that, this is kind of thought that you kind of, if you're a startup, that everybody will get some portion of equity. Anyway, and then in terms of functions of these people and goals, I told you that it's important to have the mission, the value-driven management, etc. However, anyway, goals should be transparent. Should be put on paper, and these goals are helpful even in a way if it's put like KPIs. However, at the end of the year, you can discuss the performance, and you can you can put to KPIs like 50% weight and 50% to this discussion, whatever. So anyway. In case you're not communicating specific function and specific goal and specific task to your employee, depending on the complexity of this task, they will abandon that. So you see that. So here at the below, you see the complexity of the goal. So at the beginning, you say, well, could you please do that? And person will do that without putting this on paper or anything. But when the goal or task is really complex and really hard, you have to put this on paper. Otherwise, you would not get any result. So any goal which is not put on paper will be abandoned if it's really complex, but if it's not complex, you can really not make some protocols, and send over these tasks. If something is easy, then it's fine. But otherwise, goals should be clearly communicated, stated, and put on paper. I mean, paper, email, not real paper. Sorry, put an email or anything like that. Does anybody know? Everybody knows, right? What is SMART, right? So who knows SMART? Please raise your hand. Okay. Okay, you know SMART as well. Okay, perfect. Who doesn't know SMART? Who doesn't know? You don't know SMART. Oh, perfect. Perfect. At least one person was fine to tell us that. So SMART is a kind of a framework to set goals. And I think that we have the microphone again, right? So let's give a microphone to somebody here who said they know what SMART is. Let's see. Yeah, anybody? What's S? What's S? Yeah. Specific. Yeah. Yes, please. Here. Then let's give to everybody. Specific. What is M?
Measurable.
Yeah, just to every different person, please. Measurable. Specific. Measurable.
Achievable.
Achievable. Right. Relevant, right? And you, do you know? Time-based. Yeah, time. Yes. Okay, so this is the SMART framework. So whenever you set goals, okay, so I'm fine. I think that I can use you to deliver this whole lecture anyway. Thank you so much. So whenever you set goals, they have to be specific, measurable, attainable, or achievable, and they have to be relevant and time-based. So sometimes we set the goals, and we should have this habit, really develop this habit to whenever we ask for a task, it should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and we should put specific time there. So it is really a skill you have to remember. And this is a framework which is being used everywhere, and I'm happy that most of you know this, and hopefully using that. Everybody using that? Who knows that? Not using that? Okay. Okay, but anyway, at job interviews, you have to say, yeah, we're doing SMART goal setting, and you should do that. Yeah. So finally, now the structure. The structure, the way you manage the people, you can make it more centralized and more kind of partner style. And there's on the second slide, the next slide, there's a kind of way how you choose ways how you actually manage people. So in case you have the team and you're performing really a complex and creative task, you really better use distributed control, less control, give more freedom. And in most of the cases, when we're talking about startup, this is more kind of a partner style managed company. However, there are different startups. There are a lot of centralized with just one founder who is really keeping full control. And then, of course, it's a very different style of managing people and delivering the actual result. By the way, yeah, I didn't mention that. The leader actually, if we talk about what is actually doing the leader and the manager, and you have to remember that the leader is doing the vision, right, and then the funding, of course. And the manager is making sure that there's a result. And the result, manager and result are very coming together. However, however, of course, we expect from the leaders to be successful in setting up a vision and setting up a team and finding the right funding for that to deliver results as well. Yeah, so in terms of team building, there are 4 stages. So firstly, you form the team. It means that the way you form the team, you normally go through actual roles. So you don't hire people because you like them, because they are competent in some specific function. You hire them normally, at least. You should really write down, this kind of empty boxes and put the specific functions and specific competences, and then think who would be the best fit for each role, and then find these people. And firstly, when you build a team, you get them acquainted and make sure that they feel comfortable working together. And then you're establishing the rules of behavior, the values, the mission. You will see, you recall this, one of the first slides, when there were a lot of, I would say, not productive behaviors, and you have to really address that from the very beginning. So if somebody is interrupting the other partner, you have to stop that. If you're a leader, you have to really provide the guidance. How the rules are here, what are the rules here, what are the expectations, and how you plan to cooperate. And then you becoming the team, once you go through some specific issues, specific conflicts, they will definitely arise anyway. And you have to go through each of these conflicts and resolve them. And finally, at some point, teams become really a team. And sometimes you feel that there's a kind of one person who is really creating a lot of problems, but you should really try to involve them and try to overcome conflicts at least a few times until you feel that it's better to essentially shake hands and really give the guidance to a person that he or she should leave. But before that, it's fine to have conflicts. It's fine, you have to resolve them. You have to be a leader. You have to work on these issues and really show the right behaviors to the team, recognize successes, and be positive all the time. And finally, of course, you try to increase efficiency. You're trying to kind of already, when it's already a team and you feel it as a team, and then you really try to build on that and really make it more efficient, and then add some more team members. So once you have this core group. Okay, so these are 4 stages of team building. I really advise you to remember that, so that you really understand that currently I'm in a stage of establishing the rules, right? And then you're establishing rules, and you know that you are doing that right now. So this is the phase of that, and then you see whether these rules are really obeyed, and whether they and then if somebody is really one person within the team is not doing as per rules, then this person may have to leave the company. Okay, so the other thing is that I mentioned to you the KPIs, and many times you unfortunately have a disconnect between your KPIs and what is being rewarded and what behaviors you really want to really to establish. So you're talking about, let's cooperate together, let's be helpful, let's be friends, let's spend more time together at the office, etc. But in the end, in the KPIs, it says that whoever brings more business, they will be rewarded more, right? And this is a misalignment between the reward and then kind of the values, the mission, and the styles of behaviors which you're trying to implement And you really have to, whenever you're discussing the KPIs, like the performance indicators and then the reward, you have to think that they are fully aligned with what you think would be in best interest of the team, and will be aligned with the values which you're communicating. So, in case you want to stimulate teamwork, then you would probably, split the rewards between the overall success of the company and the individual success, or potentially make that every person benefits from the team's success, from the company's success, not just from the individual success. So this you have to think it over and make sure it's fully aligned. And once it's aligned, then it probably would work better. And if your behaviors which you're trying to implement are not achieved all the time, it means that potentially the reward system is just not aligned with your values and whatever you communicate. Yeah, team rules, probably that's all clear. How are conflicts resolved? How decisions are being made? And who is doing what? This kind of rules, you have to deal with that as a leader most of the time. And finally, what are the traits of successful teams? And here I put first effectiveness. Effectiveness is in the end the real, I would say, way how you evaluate whether the team is successful or not. It's very important to have shared goals and vision, sense of mutual assistance, which I mentioned. People know what they're doing. I mean, who's doing what? Full, well-coordinated effort, and everybody knows who has the best competency in this or that regard, in this or that field. But in the end, this is all about effectiveness, about successful teams in the end should deliver results. And whenever you ask at the job interview what makes a team successful, of course you could say that when you share values, vision, mission, whatever, it's all very important, but then number one is effectiveness. Successful team means that we deliver results. Everything else is kind of helpful, but unfortunately not that important. And these are some behaviors which you have to, about which you have to set the terms. And you will see all these dynamics in the team that, somebody is trying to support, the other, somebody else is trying to dominate, to interrupt, and if there's somebody who is really performing these unproductive behaviors, they should leave. Yeah, that's it for the teams. So hopefully now you understand the leader, the manager, what are the good behaviors, bad behaviors, how you structure the team size, everything like that. And now things which I think are very straightforward, but unfortunately not being done appropriately in most of the startups by our students, unfortunately. And I don't know what's the reason for that. Of course, now that you're hearing this lecture, you will remember that and you will fix that in your pitches. So firstly, of course, you have to have some, if you're to work with some state-of-the-art technology, and if you're by yourself, not engineers, then you have to have scientific co-founder. And these are people who you can bring them at the university. And university is great from that point that you can find a scientific co-founder here. And we will I will show you some of the way how you can how you can invite these scientific co-founders and scientific board. The board of directors. Does anybody know what are the will be next slide? So what are the key competences and key functions of the board of directors? How do you think? Advising the company on what? The founders on what? Advising the founders on what? Advising on what specific? What specifically? Advising on the startup. Advising founders on their startups on what? Huh? Oh, well, let's give the microphone if you don't mind. Do we have microphone again? Who's long-term goals? Okay, strategy, right? Strategy, okay. Best manager, the board of directors. The board of directors. Yeah, the board of directors. This is the so you have the management, and above them there's a board of directors. And what's the function of them? Yes. Risky decisions. Yes. Yeah. So that's a good answer. So the risky decisions, something which probably management has to seek for advice from the board, right? Especially if we talk about risky decisions, I would add here, and hopefully I have this on the next slide, probably not, but if there is a conflict of interest, this is the number one thing which have to really to be done by the board when the management are somehow conflicted. Okay, so here is the specific issues which board of directors decide on. Obviously, this is strategy, and I would say within this strategy preparation, they should they see the red flags, something which is definitely not appropriate, and sometimes the founders are really getting really excited and going following some wrong signals, and there has to be some kind of a way to balance that with board of directors who are normally neutral, and they are resolving these most important issues and building the action program and key milestones. They expect that they will be getting that from the management, so they're not really like drafting the strategy, but they are evaluating strategy, reviewing that, adding their advice, helping. However, the board is making strategic decisions, and in my view, I would say that there are two types of decisions, or actually three types of decisions, which are most important. And I myself, I was a board member of many companies in the US, some of them public companies. I was part of the audit committee in a public company. And the three decisions which we're making were specifically the financing decisions. So how do we finance the company, the sources of financing. Then there were the shareholder matters. Shareholder matters means selling the company, making some regional partnership deal, or going public. And finally, of course, we were evaluating top management, and we were, I would say, as the board members, we could look through KPIs, and at the end of the year, we could actually challenge these KPIs and say that all the situation changed, and we think that even the KPIs were fulfilled, but the manager doesn't deserve the compensation for this or that, and there were a lot of painful discussions around that at the board. Yeah, and yeah, so there was a CEO who was driving better cars than the board members, so that was not appropriate, and he failed the IPO. Anyway, then of course in terms of strategy implementation, so we again, as I said, we're considering the results, KPIs, whether they may or not, and making the decision on the compensation of the management. The one important thing which is sometimes is unclear to most of you, to somebody who never dealt with the boards or never were part of the boards. Most of the time in a startup, the board is built out of the whom? The founders, okay, and who else? No advisors? Investors, right. So most of the time the board members are actually representatives of the largest venture groups who invested into the company. But whose interests are they representing? All the shareholders. Right. Okay. So that's a good answer. although it's wrong. So, but the answer was that the venture groups investing into the company and sitting at the board are protecting their LPs' rights. This is, I would say, I said it's kind of wrong, but because the right answer, anyway, the right answer, there's the right answer for that. The right answer is that each board member is representing all the shareholders. They're not representing their own venture group. So each board member in the company, especially if we talk about public company, but even in the private company, a board membership, we are essentially supporting and protecting interests of all the investors. Our fiduciary duties, we are working for the investors. And potentially we're working for the society, for anything else, but generally speaking, not for our own group, for our own venture group. But on the other hand, you're absolutely right. So in case, and this is a good example of Elizabeth Holmes. Elizabeth Holmes, you know Elizabeth Holmes. Everybody knows Elizabeth Holmes? No? Elizabeth Holmes? You already know that? From Theranos company, Theranos. So Theranos, you know, nobody knows Theranos. I have to, you know Theranos. Everybody knows Theranos. You know Theranos? Yeah, so this is the company, kind of currently it's now the court just started, so we'll see more details around that. So this is a great entrepreneur, Steve Jobs, in a shirt. And she is kind of alleged as a scam, everything, so like that. So, but when she was sued as a scam, at the very beginning, the actual investors didn't sue her. And I told I was interviewed by whatever, some press, and I told that until the investors not suing her, it means that she still can get out of that, get away with everything. But when the investors would sue her, it's over. And there was like a year or so when the investors were waiting, and there was like FTA, the regulator, and many others, but investors didn't sue her. But then the investors sue her, because if they doesn't sue her, then they will be sued by their investors. So that's why, yes, that's why if you sit on such kind of on a bump, then you have to sue the founder, because otherwise you would be sued by your investors in the fund. So in that regard, I would agree with you that you're kind of representing the interests of your limited partners, and you will have to sue the founder, even if it's not in the best interest of the company or other investors, whatever. You will have to sue the founder anyway. Okay, then advisory board. There's like business advisory board and scientific advisory board. The business advisory board is comprised of people who can advise you on the strategy and potentially replace your board members. And but this is of course a secret. So you just building the business advisory board. They are not involved in any decision-making processes. And however, this is a soft way to rotate your board of directors if some member of the board of directors are not helpful anymore. But generally speaking, you have the business advisory board who are not taking part in any decisions of yours, who may not even gather together. So these are just business advisory board members for different items. You're asking their support and for their advice. And finally, some scientific advisory board, and this is where I'm really kind of struggling because it's very easy when you're a student to build a scientific advisory board, but this brings a lot of credibility to the company, a lot of. It's amazing how much value you can derive from just adding the right names to your scientific advisory board, and it's very easy to do, and we can help you. And please always build a scientific advisory board if you have a deep tech startup, or even if it's kind of a easier startup. Anyway, a scientific advisory board is always helpful, and it creates a lot of credibility. So in scientific advisory board, you normally bring kind of your relationship, friends of yours or friends of your friends, who are very reputable in the scientific community, who understand your scientific field, and they are again, they just add credibility. And of course, you have to talk to them, you have to talk with them to explain what you're doing. Hopefully they get impressed and they join your board. So here is an example of a specific letter invitation to a scientific advisory board member, which I wrote by myself. So probably it's not the best one, it's just the one which I'm kind of using at some point. So what it says that we are the best people in the world, we are on a mission to change whatever, say, like space missions or like space travel and everything. We are the greatest team in the world to deliver this, this kind of mission. And here is the thing which you definitely need in your invitation letter. It says that what are these scientific advisory board members, what they will be doing, what is their role, where you say that they will help you kind of manage the strategy, or, you know, and then you say that, and then of course you need to show how much time of theirs you need. And normally you would say, oh, like no time, nothing special, you know, we just will call you like once a year, check some things. So you don't, you really try to downplay how much work they will have to do. And of course, in the end, we strongly believe that your perspective would be an invaluable asset to our firm, and we really hope that you will join our scientific advisory board. So this is a typical letter, and when somebody gets such a letter, of course they always accept, right? So you have somewhere here accepted, and this is, by the way, a letter to the most cited scientist in the world, which I wrote to him. And but he was a friend of mine anyway. But he accepted that. And then this letter is very nice. It doesn't tell anything about the money. You have another letter or kind of appendix to this, where you draft the specific terms if they getting some like equity options, anything like that. This is a separate letter, and most of the scientists are not expecting that. Well, probably not most, but some of the scientists don't expect that. Especially successful entrepreneurs are normally helping without getting any shares. They don't care. But one of the greatest scientists I talked with, and I wanted to tell him about my mission, about what I'm doing, and he sat in front of me. He said, "I have 30 minutes. So what's the deal?" That was the only question he asked. So he didn't ask me about my mission and anything. So he had, okay, so what's the deal? How much are you paying? So the scientists are different. But anyway, this is a typical letter. And you create this kind of nice letter and the deal as a separate appendix. This is my advice, and it definitely works. And then two examples of best teams. So Iridia, again, is on all my lectures. It's not because just because that I couldn't put too many companies, because this is normally confidential, but Iridia is the best example here. So what they have here, they have Jay Flatley, who is the chairman of Illumina. It's a $70 billion company. He is an investor in the company, and he is the chairman of the company. In a company which deals and which actually will potentially kill the Illumina's business. Because Illumina is doing sequencing, and this company is creating DNA and reading DNA without sequencing. So this is like potentially killing the whole business of Illumina, and he is investor here and chairman of the company. Some other guys are really also very impressive people, but probably less known. An advisory team, scientific advisory team, and they bring specifically technical excellence and domain expertise. They put George Church. George Church is #1 scientist in the world for DNA sequencing, for like everything DNA. So like for genetics, for gene therapies and everything. So, and then of course memorials like Sloan Kettering, all this Cambridge, all of these nice logos. This is scientific advisory board. And you may say that, this is kind of Iridia, this is a company. By the way, this is still a small startup, but, we don't have these connections. We can write to Jay Flatley, although it's actually possible. And it's all, everything's feasible. And I've got a lot of people who actually wrote cold letters, and it worked. When it works, then it means that, 1 out of 200 worked. not like really it works. And another example, like a female entrepreneur, a friend of mine from MIT, she won all the competitions on entrepreneurship at MIT, and just through that, through these competitions, she I think got funding like up to 1 million, just through all these like hackathons and everything. And Leila Pirhaji, and she is from Iran, and of course it was really tough for her to come to MIT, and she kind of really was like pushing that hard and managed to come over. And then what her team comprises almost like 90% of MIT people. And here at ITMO, we have good relationships with some of the Nobel Prize winners, and you can actually approach them, and you can get some of those guys, of course, if your science is there, if you're doing something really around their interests, you can get some of the like really Nobel laureates into your scientific advisory board if you're coming from ITMO and using some of the ITMO relationships. So this is a startup. I helped her to raise funding in the US. I just introduced her to one of my US investor, and he directly invested into her company. This is too early for us. But generally speaking, you know, so you see here, MIT, Broad, it's also MIT Sloan. So, you know, everything is just, you know, she just brought all the, whatever, professors from the MIT. So it also works. And by the way, this is a great startup, and she will become a billionaire. I'm pretty sure about that. And we'll be investing at a later stage into this company. So this is definitely feasible. You can do that. And there's nothing special about that. And yeah, finally. Okay, so finally, what are the questions which investors are raising? And these are probably a bit different to what I discussed with you. I discussed a bit more like practical things, how you deal with the leaders, as the founders. But investors would be asking specific questions, and will be considering whether the team is complete in terms of functions, you know, that all the functions are present, relevance. Each function, you get the best person to deliver this function, and whether you are at this stage, when you're very early, whether you have at least some network to bring the best, like the Nobel laureate, to your scientific advisory board. It means a lot. If you have it, then you have the skill, you are kind of interesting for somebody. And the other thing which they will consider, whether these stellar board members are actually involved. And this is the question. So you have to, whenever you find a name, you should make sure that you have access to this person and they are actually engaged. Although this could be just one call on a monthly basis, still they have to be accessible to you. Of course, the investors would look into the motivation system and specifically into the split, which I mentioned, how the shares are split and how much is still available to the founders, that you're not getting like 5% after this round. Then you may become discouraged and demotivated. And finally, they will look into the documentation, how everything is regulated, everything between the primarily between the team members, and we will look specifically into the labor agreements, if there are some. Okay, so these are the questions which are being asked by investors in the end. This is probably different to what we discussed for almost a couple of hours. Okay, so now, without any delay, I would think we should switch to the second lecture. So hopefully on the teams and leaders, that's more than enough information to digest. And now the venture deal terms. Actually, here we are coming to the investors. So once we have the science, the intellectual property fixed, the markets, we chose our right niche markets we want to dominate. We built the team. Now it's time to approach investors. And today we'll be discussing legal terms. And the next Friday we'll be discussing the valuations, how they are getting into billions, and how the funds are structured and everything. But today we're discussing the deal terms, and we'll be looking at the template of the term sheet. The best term sheet, which I really like, is NVCA term sheet. NVCA is the National Venture Capital Association in the US, and you can actually find this term sheet on the web. Let me check that. Okay. NVCA term sheet. So NVCA is giving you all the model legal documents, so you don't have to pay hundreds of thousands to the lawyers. However, it's not true, unfortunately. Sometimes these are really difficult terms. So you can just download the term sheet. It's a Word document, and let me check if I can find it quickly. So I will show to you also the Y Combinator term sheet, Series A. So we will compare that with the ones which we'll go through right now. Okay, so what's that? Oh my. I think I will not find it straight away. No. Yeah, so it's just that, where is this template? So, what's Series A term sheet template? Yeah, so this is, we'll go through a term sheet, full term sheet, which I am accustomed to, and which I really worked through before. And here is just to give you an example of what YC Combinator is showing as a term sheet. And today we are working with Word, and next time we'll be working with Excel spreadsheet. So this is it. This is the term sheet by Y Combinator. I've never seen any term sheet like that in my life, and I've seen hundreds of term sheets, and they are teaching that. I don't know. So this hopefully, maybe this is fine. I don't know, but I've never seen a one-page term sheet. Probably if there's a kind of initial alignment on terms, but then actually for something to sign, I worked with a different term sheet, and we will walk through that right now. So this is a term sheet which I've seen, which is NVCA template of terms, and this is 16 pages, so it's much larger than Y Combinator format. So we'll go through this whole term sheet. First, I'll go through like each of the highlighted items which are important on the terms, explain some of the very unusual terms which only happen in the venture deals, and then we'll get back to the presentation and we'll summarize that. We'll repeat some of the things so that you really remember that, get hold of them, and finally I will show you the statistics of these terms, especially these very unusual terms, whether they actually exist, whether they actually happen in real term sheets. And finally, hopefully I would have some time to give you some understanding of business ethics. Probably not. Okay, so firstly, the term sheet is non-binding. Term sheet is non-binding, but if we work in the US, and it's very different in different countries, so I'll start with business ethics actually, I will not finish with that, I will start with that. If you work in the US, when you meet, firstly, you get approached by the company. For example, some company wants to raise funding from you as a venture group. So if they write to you something and you say that you're ready for a meeting, it means that venture firm, you look through all the publicly available information, and it's a real fit, really something which really makes sense to you to meet. So and if you accept meeting, it means a lot. It means that you are ready for a meeting and you know the company quite well. Ideally, you've seen whatever, like you've seen, of course, the website, you went through the deck. Of course, you may ask to deliver the deck firsthand. That's fine. But generally speaking, you should be ready for that. Secondly, if after the meeting you're asking for an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, it means that you want to invest into this company. This is the way you communicate that you plan to invest into this company. Because sometimes an NDA to some of the people who are not in this, like dealing in the U.S., they feel that NDA is just, you're asking for an NDA to have more information, to make your decisions. It doesn't work that way. If you're asking for an NDA, it means that you are planning to invest into this company. You want to see some confidential information, evaluate that to confirm your interest in the deal. And generally, if you sign an NDA, it's like almost 30% that you will do the deal. If you sign if by chance you sign a term sheet, the deal is done. So in the US, if the term sheet is signed, unless you have the virtual data room in this some crazy scam, you find some crazy lie, and there was something very, very different to what you kind of were communicated, only then you can change something in the terms. But otherwise, the term sheet means the deal is done. And then you do your due diligence, you confirm everything, what was promised, and you close the deal. If you sign a paper that you kind of, so of course, if you sign the paper, it's over. If you sign the legally binding documents, then you really transfer funds and it's done. Just finalize that. So the difference in Russia and China. In China, if you sign the legally binding document, it's a way for you to start negotiations. So that's the difference. Okay? You got it? Hopefully. So before you sign a legally binding document, everything before that, there was just kind of a discussion and nothing. Once you sign a legally binding document, Chinese would start, okay, let's start talking, let's discuss the terms. Very interesting. Finally, we are ready to discuss this deal. And the problem with Chinese is that normally, well, of course, that's very different, and there are obviously different backgrounds and everything, but the culture is sometimes very different, and they don't feel that this is kind of unusual behavior. So they don't feel that this is something which will drive mad any Westerner. And the Russians normally do as per term sheet. They do really appropriately, and if they change the terms, it means they understand that this is an aggressive action. So this is the difference. So, but this is based on my experience, and of course there are very different people working everywhere. But for the U.S., based on my really wide experience, NDA means a lot. I saw that most of the really emerging managers, venture groups, they're kind of asking for NDAs all the time. Every meeting, let's sign an NDA, let's sign an NDA. For the Americans, they don't understand, what are you doing? Why are you signing an NDA and not proceeding with the deal? That's very unclear. Please. Yeah, can we give a microphone, please?
Thanks. So let's say you're giving someone a term sheet, or you get one yourself. It obviously takes a bit of time for money to actually go into the bank account. Right. So in your experience, how much time does it take on average between the term sheet and the actual deal completion?
Yeah, so what the company does, the way it works, they are trying to find the lead investor who would sign the term sheet. And the term sheet, it states the valuation. This is the key term. We will see this on the next page. So once they have this lead investor term sheet, then they go around and say, well, this is the term sheet, the terms. Here are the terms. And it may take 2 months for other investors to join, and then another month to close. So 2 to 3 months normally after you sign a term sheet. And of course, in the meantime, there could be some changes, could be anything. But the term sheet means a lot. And again, I've seen a lot of in other countries, the attitude to term sheet is kind of, it's non-binding, nothing special. We can sign it anyway. We will, we can go away with that because legally there's nothing binding here, except, and now we're switching back to this Word document. So the only binding thing is a no shop point. Thank you. No shop point and confidentiality. So what is no shop? Does anybody know? Probably not. Okay, let's go quickly because it's been time. And this is probably not that exciting, not that funny as videos, although videos were also kind of, I felt you may got tired with that. So no shop means that you would not get a term sheet signed and then go and say, well, I want to seek better terms. No shop agreement, no shop clause means that once you get a term sheet, you are not allowed actually to go and shop for better offer. So this is called no shop clause. No shop clause, then the confidentiality is clear, hopefully, and no other legally binding obligations will be created. The other thing in the term sheet, and it's kind of clear, but I was at some point I was delivering to the investment committee that we are investing into a company, and I was kind of defending a case, and then I was asked, so what are we buying actually? And I was, what are we buying? We are buying, what are we buying? We're buying stake in a company which produces this or that. And the response was, no, what are we buying? What will we have? And the answer was, the right answer was Series A preferred shares. So this is the right answer, and it's the first clause. What is actually the security? So we're buying securities, Series A, Series B, Series C. All of these series are possible within Corp C, C Corp, like C Corp structure in the US. And you have to find, if you want to make a legal form of your startup, you have to check that within your startup you can create a different series of shares. Because of course in Russian LLC you cannot create different types of shares. So that's why if you're creating a startup somewhere, make sure that you can have different series of shares. Okay, so here is Series A preferred stock shares. Closing date is the kind of this 2 months ahead. You put it like a timeline which is fine with you, that by that time we'll probably close. Very important point, conditions to closing. Condition to closing. Here actually it says, these are typical terms. We are looking through the NVCA template, right? So it says that completion of financial and legal due diligence. So it means that the term sheet is signed before you actually do the due diligence. So, but normally everything which was presented by the company before you sign the term sheet was enough for you to sign the term sheet with all the terms, and you would expect that once you see the data room, all their claims would be confirmed. There will be no kind of difference. There will be no surprises within the data room. Then of course investors, potentially like clearance. Clearance means anything. Clearance from some regulator, etc. Amount raised could be here some conversion of safe. Yeah, we should. Okay, so here we don't talk about safes. We should talk next time probably. Safe I think is very, very useful for you to know how safe works. Okay, pre-money evaluation. Pre-money evaluation is the evaluation before you fundraise. So if your pre-money evaluation is 10 million and you're raising 5 million, then your post-money is 10 plus 5. So, this is the kind of things you have to remember this term, pre-money evaluation, post-money evaluation, and pre-money evaluation means that before this round gets completed, the evaluation is 10 million, the round size is 5 million, so post-money is 15. Post-money evaluation is 15 million. It's so straightforward, and next time we will show this in Excel spreadsheet, how this post-money, pre-money works, but please remember pre-money evaluation is very important, and everybody is focused on what is the pre-money evaluation. This is the one of the major term, actually the most important term probably in the term sheet. Dividends. Dividends are normally, hopefully everybody heard the word dividends, and I don't have to explain what dividends, what it means. So dividends, normally you want all your money as an investor, you want all your money to be used by the company. You don't want any dividends back until they succeed and get sold for $1 billion. However, in most of the term sheets, you would still have dividends which are normally either firstly they have to be approved by the board. So if they are not approved, normally there are no dividends. But if they are, is everything okay? Monitoring screen, okay. Hopefully, okay. Okay, yeah. So there are cumulative dividends, non-cumulative dividends, and so non-cumulative dividends means that normally you would get some specific amount of dividends at some point if they are declared by the board. But cumulative dividends means that each year you have like 8% on your amount which you invested into, this additional 8% to be added to your amount which you invested into the company. So if you invested 100 million, next year you will, and you have 8% cumulative dividends, it means that you normally already kind of have the investment of 108 million. But we'll see this in liquidation preference. Liquidation preference, this is a typical term, and this, does anybody heard liquidation preference? Nobody. Okay, so it's all you. Okay, it's all kind of new information for you, for most of you. I know this may be tough to hear first time, but liquidation preference will go like a couple of times until you understand. Because this is a very important concept in the venture world. Liquidation preference means what is the water flow of proceeds which you're getting once the company gets sold. So liquidation preference, if it's if there is liquidation preference in the terms, it means, and here let's go through like 3 alternatives here, which I mentioned. So, for example, a company, you invested like 100 million into the company, and you get 10% of it, and then the company gets sold for $500 million, which means that you normally, so again, so it's probably easier to write on the desk, but I don't have a desk here. Anyway, so there's a billion valuation, okay? So you have post money actually. You invested 100 million and it's 10% in the company. But then the company is, the next step, the company is sold for $500 million. It means that your 10% stake is 50 million normally, right? Do you understand that? You following? But if you have liquidation preference of 1, it means that even if your stake currently is just 500, oh sorry, it's 50 million, because it's 10% out of $500 million, still you get first 1 capital. So all your 100 million first, and then the rest is distributed. So in this waterfall, if you have a liquidation preference, if you have seniority to everybody, like the previous investor, then in seniority or liquidation preference of 1, it means that even if the value of your stake is less than 1 times your investment, you still have the preference, this liquidation preference, right? And you still get 1 time of your capital. And we shall see this in the Excel spreadsheet next time. I will show you the financial model, and hopefully we'll manage to go through the Excel spreadsheet and see how it works. Okay, so this is the liquidation preference. So here you see like first pay 1 time the original purchase price. It means that first pay 1 times the capital plus any declared and unpaid dividends, which means, you remember, if you have this 8% dividends somewhere cumulative, then by that time, probably it's 5 years, there are a lot of dividends which are accumulated but never paid before. But now, with this liquidation preference, it says that you get first 1 time your capital plus all the accrued and declared and unpaid dividends. And then basically, everything else is paid to the holders of common stock. Here, this is a very unusual term. I haven't seen this type of liquidation preference, where you have one-time capital plus dividends, and then you're not sharing any upside. So this is very rare. The most typical liquidation preference is here, which is marked yellow. So first pay 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, could be anything of the investment you invested into the company, and then all the shares are converted into common stock and again distributed. So what it means, say you have 2 times liquidation preference. So again, 1 billion valuation, post money, you invested 100 million and you have 10% share, and the company is sold for $500 million. And your liquidation preference is 2. It means, how much do you get? So you invested 100 million, the company is sold at $500 million, so 500 million, and liquidation preference is 2. How much do you get? You said you know the liquidation preference. So, yeah, so if your liquidation preference is 2, you get 10% of the company with a valuation of $1 billion, but then the company is sold for $500 million. How much money do you get? 200 million, right. So liquidation preference, you're the first, you have preference. You get 2 times the capital invested. This is why it's called liquidation preference. You get first 2 times of your capital, and then all the kind of the rest 300 million, it was $500 million, right? So the rest 300 million, you will get 10% of it, because all the shares will be converted. You have 10% in the company, and then another 10% in this 100 you will get it. So this is a typical liquidation preference terms. This is a good, by the way, example of Elizabeth Holmes. So she raised the last funding at 9 billion valuation. But then, once there was this kind of the scam and everything, and the valuation of the company plunged to like whatever, $500 million, something like that, it still was something worth. Anyway, and then if the investors of the last round at 9 billion had, and they actually had liquidation preference, they may still get the full amount which they invested at least 1 times. Hopefully you understand that. This is tough, probably, especially at this time of, like in the evening of Friday. Anyway, liquidation preference is really, really important. And there are some other ways. Okay, let's go for the liquidation preference. So liquidation preference, normally, whenever the more senior round you get, the more senior, like round A, round B, round C, kind of the more senior round, the later round, normally you would have liquidation preference. And we shall see how many rounds had liquidation preference over the last 2 years. I will show you the statistics. Voting rights, okay, let's skip it. Just that you have your own director from your fund installed, or from the fund is installed to your company, and they have the right to vote. Protective provisions means that there's a way to veto any shareholder matters. I told you that the board of directors are deciding the funding structure, the shareholder matters, what about selling company, going public, etc. So here, these protective provisions require that at least some percentage of directors would agree to this or that decision. And you see here a lot of specific matters which are being up to board of directors to decide, and there's a specific percentage that is needed to vote for or against. Optional conversion. Optional conversion means that you can at any time convert your preferred shares to common stock. And common stock is not protected. There's no liquidation preference, you just mentioned, right? There are no this particular strange terms which we're now discussing, which are typical for preferred shares and for venture rounds, but not typical for common stock. So sometimes you really want to convert your shares into common stock, 1 for 1, and so this is like so it's optional. So you can decide. The investor may decide at any time. Anti-dilution provisions, definitely too hard to understand here at this time. Sorry. Anyway, the anti-dilution provisions. Who knows what is down round? Everybody knows down round? Down round, what is down round? No? Down round, just one person? So you are probably already like having a billion company, right? No? Not yet. It's just on the, okay, so down round is very simple. Down round means that the pre-money valuation of this round is lower than post-money valuation of the previous round. So that's it. So this means down round. Flat round means that pre-money valuation of this round is equal to post-money valuation of the previous round. In up round, it means that that your company, the valuation got with some premium to the post-money of the previous round. And normally, of course, you want up rounds. So in case of down round, there's a kind of here. Yeah, we'll go to Excel spreadsheet next time, and I will show you how this down round, up round affects your share in the company. Okay, then mandatory conversion. Mandatory conversion means that when the company goes public, all these preferred shares, liquidity preferences, all of this crazy stuff, which is kind of normal for venture world, goes away. All the shares, all the preferred shares are converted to common stock, and they are traded on the stock exchange. Of course, you want to protect yourself so that there's no kind of stupid, very value-destroying IPO being made, and you're losing all your protections as a preferred shareholder. So in case for that, to really protect yourself, you're saying that my preferred shares will only convert to common stock in case of a qualified public offering, which means that the price of a public offering would be at least 3 times my price, at which I invested into, and the size of the offering, how much money is being raised through public offering, would be at least, say, like 100 million, something reasonable. Because you really, and here you have the right to stop any IPO and not convert your shares from preferred to common stock in case the IPO is not qualified public offering. My most loved term, pay-to-play. And everybody, do you know this term, pay-to-play? Oh yeah, pay-to-play. Anybody knows pay-to-play? Nobody. This is the very unusual term, only in the venture deals. Pay-to-play. Remember, I compared venture world to poker, and this is exactly like poker. So pay-to-play means that like in poker, you have to support the bet, right? So in case you're not ready to invest a follow-on round, to invest into follow-on round, you get out of the table. So if you don't have deep pocket enough, you have to leave the table. So this is pay-to-play provision. It says that on any subsequent round, or down round here, but normally it's just round. So on any subsequent round, you have to put your investment pro rata your share. So for example, so it's 100 million you're investing. You get 10% shares in a 1 billion valuation. Next time they are raising, say, 100 million, and there's outside investors. Out of this 100, they're getting 50%, 50 million. The rest 50 million. Each of the existing shareholders have to invest as per their share. So if you own 10% in the company, you would really need to invest 5 million again in the next round. And if you're not investing, there's a term like pay-to-play here, you will get really fined. You will fined by the other investors. So for example, your shares may convert automatically to common stock. I've seen other terms. I've seen that, for example, you own 10%, but pay-to-play says that if you're not investing into the next round, pro rata your share, so it means proportionate to your share in the company, then your share price goes 10 times lower. So your share gets 10 times lower than it currently is. Why is it this kind of pay-to-play provision? It is specifically created for the, in case you're dealing with a venture company, Normally, you have to support it in the next round, and there will be next round normally. Really don't hope for an IPO or for sale of the company, even if it's late stage or whatever. So there will be probably next round. And in case the existing investors are not investing into the next round, for the outside investors, it's a very strong signal that there is a problem in the company. And everybody wants to be aligned, and everybody wants that the existing shareholders invest into the company and support the company in each next round. That is why there's pay-to-play provision. It's very similar to poker, so if you're not ready to further in the company, you're losing your share. Or you you may lose everything, by the way. Redemption rights. Redemption rights, I haven't seen redemption right almost in any term sheet, except for mine. I wrote redemption rights in some of the term sheets, and I think this is inappropriate now, but this was my first term sheet. Anyway, redemption means that it's essentially like a put option. You can sell the shares back to the company in 5 years' time. And this is very unusual. So normally, you invest into a venture company, and if it's not sold, then you're stuck in the company for many years. And this is usual, and this is what you would normally expect from a venture company, which is not really liquid anyway. It's a private company. But even in this template, we have this redemption rights, which allow you to sell to the company the shares back after 5 years. I have never seen this actually in the terms, because if you invest in a startup, it means that you're normally there until the company gets sold or goes public or whatever, or it just fails. That's it. Anyway, and then goes absolutely crazy. Lots of provisions which were never in this term sheet, which I really love this term sheet because it was so straightforward. And now you will see a lot of these CFIUS. And CFIUS stands for Committee for Foreign Investors, into the US. CFIUS. It's obviously like a present from the previous president who actually who introduced a lot of barriers to invest into the US. And the CFIUS provision means that in case you're investing into something which is considered to be potentially usable for military purposes, then you have to have approval of the Committee for Foreign Investments into the US to invest into a US company. And unless you have a very small share in the company. So you still can get around that if you have a small share. But CFIUS, you see here how much text we have for CFIUS. It's all about CFIUS here. CFIUS, and we will see a lot of further down this document. Anyway, this will skip it. Lockup period. Lockup period is that you cannot sell your shares within normally half a year after company goes public. It's very clear, right? Why? It's very clear. Clear? You sleeping? Okay. No? Yeah, because of course you will really drop the price down if everybody sells once the company goes public. So at least 6 months, 180 days after the company goes public, it's 180 days lockup period. It's standard. It's almost everywhere. And there are exceptions to that. And I've seen how if there is exception, then really the price goes down like 30-50% just after an IPO. And the other thing which is very unusual, but specific for the venture deals primarily, that at an IPO, normally the existing shareholders are not selling shares. It's all really initial public offering, and it's not like secondaries. It's not the founders not selling stocks. Normally, most of the times, but of course you can sell shares, and it brings a wrong signal to the market that the founders somehow want to exit, and then there's no lockup provision, so all the investors will be selling straight away, especially if there are retail investors in the company. So hopefully, normally it is 180 days lockup provision, and of course Of course, normally the existing investors invest into the IPO and support the IPO. So they are investing more funding, more money into the IPO. So because, so this is more typical. But of course, there are statistics for that. And then finally, probably some final terms for today. Right to participate in future rounds. So whenever they raise future rounds, you have the right to participate pro rata. And so it's kind of opposite to pay-to-play, right? Pay-to-play, you are required to participate, and you have also the right to participate as well. Matters which are requiring directors' approval. Here are the matters, and everywhere you would see a specific percentage. So you need you need some specific percentage or number of directors who would vote in favor of something to decide on these matters. Non-competition agreements, that I told you non-compete doesn't work in California. Hopefully you remember that. DNO, does anybody know what DNO stands for? DNO. I wanted to use your resource for this lecture. Unfortunately, you don't know DNO. DNO is Directors and Officers Insurance. Very important point. So if you're a director, and I can tell you the bad thing about that. So once you're a director, member of the board of directors of a public company, whenever the shares go 20% down, 50% down, or even get higher, like 50% up, you get sued for any movement of shares, any really abrupt movement of shares. You get sued for any price action. There's a class action suit. So there will be lawyers trying to collect the shareholders of the company, make a class action suit against you, and they will go after directors as well. So if you're a director in the company, in the US, of course, you will always have DNO insurance. Not the case, by the way, in Russia. And the issue with Russia is that in some of the state corporations, there's no DNO insurance, and you have to pay by yourself for this insurance. So this is now being resolved, but in the US, there's always DNO insurance. And the funny thing, just anecdotal evidence, it may not be true, but this is my personal experience. So in case your DNA insurance protects you for $5 million, so this is the level of protection of your decision making. The lawyers would try to get the $5 million. So it's kind of all aligned. That's kind of a funny thing. So everybody knows how much you could expect to get from this, from the insurance company, and the lawyers will go after this amount of money. And this kind of became aligned because probably this is a competitive market and kind of efficient market. By the way, here it says non-compete restrictions are prohibited in California and may not be enforceable. It just they put it directly into the, again, pre-CFIUS approval. Again, CFIUS. You see here, CFIUS, it's this kind of protecting and trying to limit the investments out from the non-US investors into the US. I think this is really, really bad for the US, for the country, but obviously there were reasons for that. And right of first refusal, right of sale. You need to remember tag-along and drag-along. Tag-along means that if one of the shareholders are selling for the outside investors their shares, you have a right to buy these shares from the other shareholder. So so this is tag-along. Okay, where is drag-along? Drag-along here. Drag-along is if somebody is selling and then most of the investors are selling to this particular entity, to this company. So say more than 50% and you own less than 50%, you have to sell your shares at the same price, and it's drag-along. So tag-along and drag-along is a very, very typical terms They are, in the Russia, it's put directly into legislation. If you talk about LLC, but here you have to put this explicitly. In no shop agreement, no shop clause that you're not going with these terms to shop for a better offer. Confidentiality is confidentiality, and expiration. Expiration is, like normally you put, say, 2-3 months, and you don't want to put a long date. Even I believe this. I believe this in mutual interest to put like normal, like I would say reasonable term for the once the term sheet expires. Sometimes the other party would say, well, why do you put this 2 months? If we deal 3 months, our term sheet will not work or expire. And you can always say, well, we will prolong term sheet if it's still relevant. We will prolong term sheet. But ideally, you have a term sheet at expiration date reasonably short, actually, reasonably short, so that you're bound by this term sheet for some time. And again, please treat term sheet as an actual binding obligation. Although it explicitly says it's non-binding, please, from the business ethics standpoint, treat it as binding agreement. That's it for the term sheet. Hopefully, so we went through the, I really wanted to go directly through the actual text, which is being used everywhere in the venture space. This is actual template. You can download it in Word format from the website, NVCA, and use it directly, and put the terms in there, and may save some money on lawyers. Okay, so just to to repeat everything that I just said. So these are the terms of actual deal. so there are again. So here 3 blocks. Preference. So we are buying preferred shares. Voluntary conversion means that you can at any time convert the shares to common stock. Automatic conversion means that in case the price of an IPO is 3 times the price which you paid for the share, and the overall amount of the IPO is more than 50 million, then your shares, you may not stop the IPO. You have to convert your preferred shares into common stock and lose all your liquidity preferences, everything. I will explain to you like in a real example. So, for example, typical situation. You come to a company, a startup, and I'm a venture group, and it says our valuation is $1 billion. And I believe that their valuation is 300 million, not more than that. We may not be able to make a deal. We have really substantial difference in our understanding what the value of the company is. However, as a venture group, we want them to go public at 2 billion valuation, just in half a year. And of course, if they raise money at a valuation of 300 million, it's totally impossible for them to go public at 2 billion valuation in half a year. So we are also interested that the valuation is 1 billion. For us, it's also important. But then we say, okay, we don't, let's not discuss this 1 billion, 2 billion, 300. We accept your valuation at 1 billion, but we request that there will be 3 times liquidation preference, 3 times. Which means, of course, the entrepreneur doesn't want to have this kind of 3 times liquidation preference. Generally, it sounds like a distressed asset. Generally, this liquidation preferences, especially if it's very high. But then you know that even if the company doesn't go public within half a year and never goes public, and then it's sold at a discount, you will get 3 times your investment, at least 300. So you're kind of protected, and you tell the entrepreneur, okay, so you go public. You said you're going public in 6 months, and all these provisions will go away. So you claim that in 6 months you go public. I'm fine with that. I'm asking you for 3 times liquidation preference just in case you don't go public. But this is very this is not really happening. You're claiming that you already hired Goldman Sachs. So why would you kind of have doubts that you can go public? So you should remember this automatic conversion, liquidation preference, and everything all of these items like pay-to-play provisions, all of these crazy things go away once the company goes public and it's all common shares. Dividends, we mentioned liquidation payments, and liquidation payments, this is called liquidation preference, right? Corporate governance means who and what decides, what percentage is decisive, and of course all the others like drag along, tag along, etc. Here are in 3 terms which are unusual. I want you to remember them. Liquidation preference, hopefully now you understand what it is, hopefully. Next time I will show you like really in Excel spreadsheet how liquidation preference works. Pay-to-play provision that you have to invest pro rata into the next round, and if you're not investing, you're out of the game. Pay-to-play provision. And down round, you have to remember this term. Down round means that unfortunately your valuation went down. That's it. So that's very flat round. And probably final slide for today, which I think is really good. It's Cooley. Cooley is is a legal firm, and they publish specific terms in the deals which they are supporting. And you see here, the most beautiful slide here is here this top left slide, top left chart, showing that seed series are done at a valuation of say like whatever, couple of millions or less than 10 million. Then Series A, you see here the blue line, it is whatever, like probably like 10 million probably. And then Series B is done around 300 million, right? You see here this uptick in June 2021. And then Series C is made at like whatever, higher than $500 million. So next time we will go through the financial model, and you see that this is ideal. This is ideal terms. So each round is an up round. You're getting higher and higher valuation, and it grows exponentially. You're raising, of course, less than your valuation, obviously. And we will see how this works, so that you're creating a billion company. Here you see that in Q2 2021, the latest data we have, almost 100% of rounds were up rounds. It means that the market potentially is like really there's a like overheat basically in the market, because you see it's almost 100% of rounds are up rounds, and this was not the case before. Liquidation preference. Here you see that liquidation preference higher than 1, almost whatever, 5%. At some point it was like 10%, just in Q2 2020, when the market, you saw like in March last year, the market went down like almost 40% at some point. So here you see that there was an uptick of the liquidation preference, and generally it's like a distressed kind of term. Pay-to-play provision. Here, based on different series of shares, you see that of course the Series D or higher have more pay-to-play provision, even like more than 10% of deals, again back in Q1 2020. So whenever there's a change of balance of power towards investors, within in March 2020, there was like really like everything was falling down, and everything was like feeling there was a total collapse, and people were accepting funds at really tough terms. You see here a spike of terms with pay-to-play, especially at late-stage deals, So, yeah, so that's probably the cool statistics. This is all interactive charts. You can go on the website cooleygo.com/trends, and you can see the terms. Okay, so this is it. Hopefully now you understand the business ethics. That if you sign an NDA, it's very important. If you sign a term sheet, all the terms are there. You're normally not changing them. Hopefully you understand the leader's role, the manager's role, how the teams are comprised, and everything. That's it for tonight. Thank you so much. Yeah, sorry, I think I'm tied myself a bit, but I'm ready to get some questions from you. And by the way, the best question will get this human being T-shirt. Any questions? Yeah, please.
Good evening. Thanks for your lecture.
Yeah, this is a bad start for to get the T-shirt, right?
I have a question about first part of lecture. Does teams with family members have something special things than common teams? Because we know such companies like Johnson & Johnson, Lego, Mars, Foxconn. It's a family team companies which start with it. Thank you.
Well, you know, I don't think I can speculate about that. I think this is not a perfect solution to have, you know, to have your relatives in the team, in my view. But it's theoretical. There are great teams, great, you know, there's like a lot of, so far I think, brothers. I haven't seen sisters creating companies. We have seen a lot of startups which were created by brothers, right? And they were quite successful, like Durov, for example, have a brother who is very technical, and he is more into marketing, and it worked very well for them. And there are many other examples, actually. But, you know, I don't have any scientific evidence. You know, I have to, I haven't thought about that in detail. But generally speaking, yes. Generally speaking, based on experience, yeah, normally it doesn't work, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Because you have to, you know, fire people easily, and it's not always easy to fire your wife or, you know, or like your relative from a firm. So yeah. So, and by the way, on the teams, also very important. Don't be afraid that you will rotate your team a lot at the beginning. You know, you feel sometimes that you're probably a bad founder, bad manager, whatever. You know, when you change in the team, like rotating 1, 2, 3, 4, you're choosing, like seeing that doesn't work. Sometimes hiring somebody and understanding that in a month you understand it doesn't work. You fire people and it's fine. You know, don't be afraid of that. So, yeah, the startups are really rotating people a lot.
Thank you.
So my question is about pay-to-play. So according to graphics that you've shown, so as I understand, is it optional?
No, pay-to-play is a requirement. So you really have to play, to pay, to pay to play. Yeah. So it's like yeah, it's very like poker, by the way. Yes, I think this is you know. You cannot really you know, skip that. You have to invest.
So this is essential for termship.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But there are, like, as you see here. By the way, if you listen to this video interview by Evgeny Zhukevich, he said that they hope to get what was the amount? I think 250 million at a valuation of 4.5 billion. But then they were forced in March 2020 to get 36 million round instead of 250 at a very low valuation, and because they thought that everything is really collapsing and it's over. But then in April it already went up back to normal. So we had this V type of recovery back like in March, April timeframe. Yeah, there was a question, please.
Yeah, thank you for your lecture, and I have a question also about the team. As Jeff Bezos said, the best team is a near 5-person, in team, so
right.
Not many people.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is about, is it okay or is it better if the people in the team will have the soldiers or army background? I talk about the Israel. So as a country, there's a lot of startups.
Yes.
And almost all people were in army. So maybe this is so connections about that. Thank you.
Yeah. So I generally, like what I've said, is that the same background is good, the same values, the same, I would say, character even. Like character is good, and probably people who went through some similar experience, especially in terms of discipline, they may work really well together. And I, for example, by background, I'm an investment banker for over 10 years. I was an investment banker. It's very specific, like very disciplined job, and I feel very comfortable working with only with investment bankers. And unfortunately, after you work like that for many years, you're kind of the risk is that you will be doing investment bank everywhere, whatever job you take. But you have to adopt your style, etc. Because unfortunately, not all the people are investment bankers. So that's very, very sad. Investment bankers are very expensive, so you cannot hire investment bankers in education world, unfortunately. But yes, so I think it's great. Yes, they have the same background, and then same kind of style and discipline, and they are kind of the same frame like mindset. Yeah, that's helpful. Okay. And Israel, but I don't think that this is the reason why Israel is so innovative. Not because everybody went through army. It's not because of that. But that's a good question. Yeah, please.
So what's the real reason to go down round? It's kind of breach round to the bigger one.
Yeah. So down rounds means that generally speaking. By the way, again, sorry about that, but Yevgeny Zhukevich in his interview, he is very, very honest with the interviewer, and he says that our previous valuation was completely crazy, and I know that. I know it. It was kind of it was wrong valuation, and now we have to go for down round, and because our previous valuation was wrong, not because this valuation is right, but now unfortunately our previous valuation was too high, and unfortunately due to this to the pandemic situation, it went down again lower than fundamental valuation of ours, lower than reasonable. But as an entrepreneur, you have to make decisions. You have to think whether there's a chance to raise at a higher valuation or not, in what terms you can trade. In the thing when I started investing, and I was an investment banker, I was sitting like in front of these entrepreneurs, and they would tell me honestly that they have only 2 months to fundraise, and they are running out of money. And I was like, okay, then I can ask any terms, right? So I have the power. And as an investment banker, you have this instinct that now you can really push and kill the company. But then, I realized that they are fundraising when they're running out of money. They're not fundraising somewhere in between. So normally, you finalize your milestone. You have at least 6 month runway of cash, but and you start fundraising, and fundraising can take longer than 6 months. And if they don't like the valuation, even they ran out of money, they will not accept your money at a crazy valuation, and if they feel that you are taking advantage of them. And next time I will be talking about the venture funds. And I once asked a few entrepreneurs why they always accepted funding from Domain Associates. This was our strategic partner in the US with whom we worked. This is a venture fund, Domain Associates, one of the oldest one. And the entrepreneurs told me that they never took advantage of us. That was the reason why they always worked with them. Even when you are insider and you know that the company is not going well, and you can really push the valuation down like 3 times lower than the previous round. If you are an appropriate venture firm and you have this ethics, you will not take advantage of them. So, and they will remember that, and they will come to you with this next startup. So, and I will tell you like a few anecdotes about that like next time probably. Well, probably now is fine. If everybody's sleeping, no? Okay. So there was okay. I'll tell you one anecdote because this is actually fits to my lecture. There was an episode. Our first investment we made. Our first investment, and this was my first time I was at the board of directors in San Diego. Nicely, I invested a lot of money into this company. The money came from Rosnana, and Rosnana was our LP in the fund. And they were like the manager, the CEO, was saying that they had the data from the clinical trial, and they send it to the potential acquirer. And he was presenting this data to us as a board. And we asked questions about this data. And he was not able to answer our questions. And he said, we got some data, but this is totally unclear. We don't know why this. We said, well, why have you sent this data to the firm? You cannot explain even to us what it means. Did you send to them any interpretation? He said, no, I haven't sent the interpretation. I promised to them to send the data once we have it, and since I had it, I had to send it over. And I understood at that point that we are losing the transaction and we're losing the money, and so I was sitting there. I was really like boiling. I wanted to tell him that, that he just killed the deal, and I don't know how I can explain it to my LPs what's happening, and we are losing money on that. And everybody was very, very polite with him, all the board members, very polite, and saying, well, John, whatever. I think that we should find a way how to interpret this data and explain it to the potential acquirer. And then he left because there's a management session, executive session, where the management leaves and only board members sit. And I was, what's going on? We should fire him immediately. He doesn't know how to sell the company. He said that he sent the data which he cannot explain, and he ignored ours. And they were all sitting there and said, yes, it was a wrongdoing, and potentially the deal is now crashed. And we need to find to decide who of us will tell him that he did wrong things. What's going on? What is this kind of spectacle? And they choose one board member, and John got back. He said, John, to be honest, you should probably try and ask us for advice before you send the information to the potential acquirer, because we are here, and we are not empty space, not waste of space here. We know a bit about the industry, and we could help you to find a way how to explain this data. Probably you shouldn't, you could send it a few weeks later. That would be fine as well. Nothing would happen. And I was again sitting there, and I was like crazy. So what's going on? Why are picking words? How to explain to him that he's doing things wrong? And when he left, I talked to Domain Associates, our friends, and I said, what was going on? So we should fire this guy immediately. I'm a banker. I know how to sell the companies, and what he did is he should be fired straight away. And he said, yeah, we may fire him, but later on. But if we not behave at the board meeting, he will remember that, and all the entrepreneurs in the US will know that we are misbehaving and we are kind of treating him inappropriately. And we really keep our relationships with entrepreneurs, and the entrepreneurs are creating value, creating companies, and we want them, the best entrepreneurs, to come to us, not to somebody else. And that's why we may fire him in half a year. At some point, we will all talk to our LPs, talk inside the firms, and then choose each one. We'll call him, explain that this was absolutely wrong, but in a very nice way. And at some point, if he doesn't understand that, we will fire him. So that's kind of a very specific corporate culture, which I really adore, and I learned it at some point. But this was my first experience as a board member in a U.S. company. So it is very emotional. I've seen actually some shouts in the boardroom. There was a time like that. There was some British investor in the company, but it doesn't matter if it was British. But anyway, it's very rare. Normally, it's very polite, very nice. So this is just an anecdote for you. So what the question was, I don't remember. Down round, yes. Down round, yes. So you have to, sometimes you have to accept. Well, normally down round is specific to some specific situation, some specific failure. So you promise, for example, in Iridia. So now we create, we made a prototype. Next time We get around when we have 10 by 10 memory cell. And then in 2 years' time, they don't have 10 by 10 memory cell. It doesn't actually work somehow, and they have to make a pivot to a like synthetic biology company, something like not data storage anymore, and then this will be a down round potentially. But if they do like 10 by 10, they raise it at least 150 million valuation, another 50 million. They do 1,000 by 1,000, and they are sold for like 5 billion. And I will show to you how this works in the Excel spreadsheet. And we went through that, and it is possible. And this is the way actually these billions are created. So we will see, like at least in Excel, we will all become billionaires in our next lecture. Yeah, thanks. So any more questions? Well, you can ask as a student. That's fine.
Only as a student?
Yeah, as a woman, okay.
Just okay, okay. I have a question about leader and manager. Why we are comparing a type of character and a profession? It's strange for me. Why?
Yeah. So here the good question. So a leader and a manager, there's their specific roles. And if you are in the company, if you have a role of a manager, you have to understand that you are chief operating officer. You are not the founder. And sometimes in the other situation, in another setting, you will be a founder. In another setting, you will be board member. And you have to understand these different roles. And then what is very important for me to communicate today, which hopefully everybody understood, is that all the founders are very different. Some of them are emotional. Some of them are totally not emotional. Some of them are like aggressive or whatever. Like if like what is it called, toxic masculine, whatever kind of. So anything. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And by the way, have you seen the eyes of Jeff Bezos? Like really crazy eyes when he explains something. And now Elizabeth Holmes, she failed, and everybody says she had these glass eyes, like kind of like eyes like glasses. So you know, it doesn't matter. So people succeed. If they succeed, they say, well, because she had this kind of lowering her voice, that's why she succeeded. And it is really totally irrelevant. The characters, the only thing which really matters is the stamina, that you are capable of working hard for like 10, 20 years, believing in your vision and delivering it, and like finding better teams all the time, rotating teams, doing this better and better, and keeping like being ready once the market, you know, appreciates what you're doing. That's the only term. The characters, you know, character could be any. Good manager. So I don't get your question. Maybe in Russian, please. Yes. Can you speak in Russian? Давайте по-русски тогда, да? Просто, может, я не понимаю. Maybe I don't understand the question, sorry.
У нас просто произошла небольшая дискуссия здесь. Для нас было странно сравнение характера, то есть фактически лидер — это человек, ну, человек, у которого есть этот задаток именно в характере, а менеджер — это профессия, позиция, да. Менеджер не обязательно должен быть лидером, а лидер не будет менеджером. Ну, как бы, это абсолютно полярные какие-то вещи, которые было странно сталкиваться.
No, yeah, now I got it. So basically, yes, so there is, again, so it's all about roles, so specific role. As I told you, so I had the experience with the CEOs, chief operating officers, with the legal background, becoming CEOs, kind of CEO position, right? The kind of the leader normally position, and this is about roles. The character is fine. So you have to remember what role are you playing right now. So if you're playing a leader role, you have to be a leader, and you have to live with this vision. You know, you have to communicate that, and you have to find funding for your startup, for your project, and for your team. And this is the role. And you know, from the character perspective, you can be like anyway. It's sometimes you can be like really emotional, whatever, and be very efficient. I've seen a lot of like totally, I would say, well, they are psychotic. They are like you cannot deal with these guys, and they are actual founders, and they are very efficient. And probably, you know, probably they are good managers as well, potentially. I don't know. But so it's all about character. Character could be very different, especially for leaders. Could be anything. And I showed to you today 4 videos, and they are very different. You know, this impression that there are specific traits of leaders which will let you, like, which are inherent from your relatives, from your, like, you know, from your parents, or some genetically, you're genetically a leader. I don't think so. I think that if you believe in something and you want this to happen, you will, you know, at some point, you know, you will be communicating that. You will be like, in the end, you will be fundraising for that vision, and you'll be a leader. And it's totally, yeah. It doesn't matter what your character is, and definitely it doesn't matter what your gender is, what your whatever, like anything. It is like some prejudice and some expectations from the society, whatever. So it is changing now, and there's much more acceptance. Okay, hopefully if there are no more questions, I'm staying here for another 15 minutes, so you can ask me directly. But otherwise, I think that the T-shirt goes to probably this guy. You please. Yes! So this is human being. Well, probably it's a large size. So thank you so much. Have a great day. It's Excel. Okay, if somebody can take a picture of us, that would be great. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. Is somebody? Anybody? No? Nobody? Okay. So yeah. So just a second. What's the? Finally. Okay, so let's do that. Let's do photo. So 3 times human being. Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for coming.